Good morning, evening, and afternoon, whatever time you are listening to this. Welcome to the Reckless Comedy Podcast. My co-host today is Christine Knowlton, and today we've got a very, very exciting person on the show. Christine, would you like to introduce them?
Yes, I would. Please give it up for the amazing Charlie McCullagh.
Woo!
Hello.
So glad
Hello.
to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So let's get this out the way. Obviously, congrats on getting Bonnie and Clyde for a second time. Of course, most of the people listening to this will know you from Bonnie and Clyde. But so with Bonnie and Clyde, would you like to explain to people in the first run what you were doing in the show and what you're going to be doing in the second run of the show?
Yeah, so the first run of Bonnie and Clyde, I was the offstage male swing. So essentially, anytime you were watching the show and it was like the full cast were available, I was sat in my dressing room reading a book, playing the Switch, or going over lines, or potentially even in the audience watching. And I was first cover Buck, second cover Clyde, and second cover Ted. And then also swinging all the male parts. And then this time, I'm still a male swing, but I'm on stage, so I've got my own little ensemble track. I am first cover Buck and second cover Clyde, and I'm not covering Ted this year.
That's great. That's great. And obviously, Bonnie, we were talking about this before we started, but Bonnie and Clyde, obviously, when it was announced to come to the West End, obviously they had the amazing concert version with Jeremy Jordan, which went really well, sold out in 6 minutes, I do believe.
Yeah, I had tickets and I had to sell mine because I was in Germany.
Oh, really? I was about to ask you, did you get to see?
Yeah, I was one of the Bonnie and Clyde mega fans. It was my drama school edition. It was my drama school showcase. I used to just love Bonnie and Clyde, and me and my girlfriend got tickets to see it because I also think Jeremy Jordan's great. So I was like, great, this is fabulous. Actually, Bonnie and Clyde was one of the first CDs I had in my car. So I was like, well excited to see it. But I got a job doing a play in Germany and I couldn't get back in time. So I missed it. But when they announced the transfer that night, my girlfriend told me, and I messaged my agent in the middle of a show to be like, I've just heard this. Get me in, please.
I mean, obviously the concert version, considering, Bonnie and Clyde's history, it started out on Broadway. Me and Christine have spoken about this a lot, but it's really weird to see how on Broadway it could have gone places, but it just didn't. And then it comes over to the West End and it just becomes, massive.
Yes, it just blew up. Place. It's amazing. Like, I'm completely jealous right now.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think one of the things that it had going for it in the West End was it had, I mean, obviously the concert was in Drury Lane, which was massive, but it is like what was it? It was one night only, 2 shows one day?
I think it was, yeah, because they were doing a pro shot recording of it at the same time. So yeah, I think the cast were coming in during the day to do filming, and then they were performing it that night.
Yeah, so I can't wait to watch the pro shot since I missed it. But yeah, so I think one of the things that we had going for us in the arts was how intimate the arts is. I remember on our first day of rehearsals, Nick Winston had went to see the Choir of Man because it was in before us, and had said about how like he felt like the bar was like coming off the stage, and he felt like that would translate really well into Bonnie and Clyde. And I think that was bang on, because in Bonnie and Clyde you felt like you were on top of the audience, like you were, especially since the stage was slightly slanted and the front row is right up there, like you could see everyone even when the lights were off, the house lights were off. And I think that added to it, because I think also with all of the like passionate love and the like guns and the drama, like I just think it felt like a 3D movie. Do you know what I mean? It's like right there. I think it really, really helped. And the show as well, with its sort of like country rock, like it's exploding off the stage. Which I've seen shows in the Garrick, and it has that similar feel. So I'm hoping that vibe will come over in the transfer.
Yeah, definitely with the arts, with the start of the show, when, you know, you're plunged into darkness. At the arts, when you're plunged into darkness, you genuinely start getting chills down your back because of how small the venue is.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah.
you know, things happen during the show. You know, the dark moments become a lot more darker because you're in a smaller place.
Yeah, I remember the first time, because again, being off stage swing, you go to all of the tech days, because obviously if anything changes, you need to be aware. But you just watch a lot from all the different angles. And I remember watching the opening, because obviously in rehearsals we had just seen it as like two random chairs and Jordan and Frankie lying on a chair and pretending to hold a steering wheel. But I remember the first day sitting there and watching this car and all the bullets and all of the noise and the sound effects and the screams, and it's class. I remember just being like, great, I'm in, I'm hooked. What's next?
It was always fun watching, or even after you see the show a couple of times and you know what's coming in that opening scene. I always love seeing audience reactions to when the bullets start firing. It is always about the same reaction, but it's always like, and then when the car's revealed, it's always the reaction of, oh, okay, was not expecting that.
Yeah. I think it's that thing, isn't it? Like, we had I can't remember if Nick said this or if our resident director said it during our cover rehearsals, but it was that idea. No, I think Nick said it. It was that idea that like we had to make the audience forget that Bonnie and Clyde died. Like that was like the rule. It was like, yeah, we're gonna show you that it happens, and then the rest of the show is like, we need them to forget. We need them to get so wrapped up in the story that they do not remember this is gonna happen until the bitter end. And then it's like, oh, no, because otherwise it's like if they don't have that opportunity to forget, we lose the emotional punch of their love being cut short.
Yeah, I remember watching it for the first time, and you know, the car's revealed, and it's like, okay, right, we know they're dead. And then it goes into picture show and it sends you back. And then when you get to the end of the show and they're getting back in the car again, my mind sort of went, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But wait, hang on, they were dead and now they're not. Oh, now they're dead. Right, now they're dead.
It's like that whole emotion. It's like that whole emotional ride. It's like, boom, it's like you see them dead. Great picture show comes on and you're like all happy and into it and everything, and you're following the story and it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then at the end it's like, oh.
Yeah, I think also it's one of the really fun things with Buck and Blanche. I think when I covered Buck, especially then when I like sort of got to take over the last like week and a half, 2 weeks, like I really noticed it getting to do it back to back so frequently. But audience reactions to them two as a couple is really fun, because most audiences don't know what's going to happen to them, especially when they have their massive argument scene in Act 2. Like, I remember one day, I can't remember what it was, but Nat was just like, oh, you kind of held off on me a wee bit last night. I feel like I want you to just go for it. So I like tore into her in this argument and like really snapped at her. And I remember the entire like audience being like, like, because it was just like they didn't know how this relationship was going to end up. And I was like, oh, this is great. We should really like lean in on this, because obviously everyone knows that Bonnie and Clyde are going to fall in love and they're going to be together until the bitter end. Like that's the whole point. But with Buck and Blanche, it's like, oh, there's a bit more room to really play this here. Really not milk it, but like put the audience to fear for this relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people who saw the show will agree. Natalie McQueen is just hilarious. Like her Blanche, there were times where I'm watching her as Blanche going, how can she make me not laugh my head off? There were times where I was nearly in tears of laughter because Natalie just would go full on at times.
She the first week of rehearsals, not even first couple of days, I can't remember really, but George was doing another show at the time, so he actually wasn't there for the first like day or two or three. I can't remember how long it was. So I found out the day before the read through and sing through that I would be playing the part of Buck, just for the day, until George came back. And I obviously had not really done that much reading of the script or had really thought about this part yet, because I had so much to learn. That I just remember we went into that scene in the hair salon, and I was like, right, oh God, here we go. How am I going to play this? What am I going to do? And as soon as Natalie McQueen started, I was like, oh, I'm terrified of my wife. That's it. I'm scared of my wife. I'm the big man who is probably quite intimidating in jail, but when he gets home, his wife runs the house. And I was like, happy days. And I think that might actually be something I held to, even like by the time I had done my own work on the part, I was still like, I'm terrified of my wife.
There were definitely moments with like Natalie McQueen. I think it's mainly You're Going Back to Jail, where I used to go into that scene thinking, okay, what's Natalie going to do this time? Because there would always be slightly something different she would do, and that just made it so fun. Like the dynamic, like the funny moments in that song, you know, with people like Trish and with Buck, with like I don't want her coming round here no more. Like that's
I think as well, like the thing with Nat and George as well, when you got to watch them doing it, is that even in rehearsals, they have this like amazing chemistry where they constantly challenge each other, and they constantly like don't feel the need to do it the same every time, and to do little things to try and like poke fun at the other one. And I think that the Buck and Blanche dynamic really needs it. And Nat and George doing that. And I'm really excited now, because obviously we've got Jodie Steele coming in to play Blanche now, and it's going to be really fun to see someone else do it, because also Nat barely was ever off. Like Lauren played the part a couple of times, Annie played it twice in one day, but it was usually always Nat. So it's going to be really interesting to see someone else doing it, and how that's going to affect the Buck and Blanche dynamic. Is it going to be completely different vibe, or is it going to be a similar vibe but different in its own way?
I mean, a lot of us, those who are fans of Jodie Steele, you know, all of us are sort of going, we can only start to imagine how like Jodie is going to take it, because Jodie is hilarious when she was playing Heather Chandler in Heathers, so we can only just imagine how just potentially off the rails she's going to be.
Gonna go. Yeah, to be fair, she's like lovely. I've only met her briefly. I've not had like a very, very long chat with her. I met her briefly. She's lovely. And I've heard her singing all of the material. And she is very much doing her own thing with it. And it's spectacular. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, obviously, so when you were doing the show at the Arts, obviously at the end of the run, you know, they said they were thinking about, you know, they were going to try and bring it back to London again. And obviously a tour was mentioned. We're looking at the producers here. Where's the tour? Hello. We don't know. Genuinely, we don't know.
Nobody tells me nothing. It's all above my pay grade. I come in, sing me songs, and go home.
But obviously, with the Arts, when the run finished, did you have any suspicion on like getting another transfer? Obviously, they were like, we're hoping to do it, but did you think it was going to happen that quick?
You know, it was one of those periods. I think, you know, every time I do a job, I think, you know, you come away learning something. And Bonnie and Clyde was one of those jobs for me anyway. I mean, I learned a lot in Bonnie and Clyde. I look back at it now and I go, there's some things about where I'm like, okay, I've learned a lot about how to like act backstage, and like how to like treat this sort of machine of a West End show because I'd never done it. Like it's different than doing like a short stint somewhere. But in regards to that, I spent a lot of time during the run thinking about it. I thought about it all the time about like, oh, I wonder what the future is, because I was just having so much fun. And compared to other people, I spent a lot of time backstage. And I loved every opportunity I got on because I'd never done a show where I wasn't on every night. So for me, I just like didn't want it to end because everybody was just so much fun to work with and our little family was great. So I thought about it all the time. And it got to a point where, and I've learned this even with balloons then afterwards, like you do just get to a point where you have to just treat everything like this is the end. But I feel like we were pretty confident that there would be something. We just didn't know when. But we all were holding out hopes for something. Did I think it would be this soon? Part of me thought it would be sooner. I did think that they were going to try and really leap on it, but obviously like things just don't work that way, and there's a lot to take into consideration. But like when we went for our first rehearsal, the ensemble rehearsal to sing through like God's Arms and Made in America and stuff, Alex, who plays Henry, Clyde's dad, was like, "Can you believe that it's only been 6 months since we finished?" And I was like, "No."
That is nuts. Like, even for me, like, I'm like, my last show was end of June. And now here we are in February and the show is opening in a few weeks.
Yeah, and it's but that's the thing. And also most of us have went on and done other work. So it feels really weird because for all of us, it feels like about a year or so later. So it feels really strange to be that it's only been 6 months. So it has been a really quick turnaround. In my head, it feels like it hasn't been.
I think it felt definitely a hell of a lot longer than it actually has, to be fair. You know, once the show closed, obviously we have to mention this because we mentioned it in the Lauren interview, but the eyes with Bonnie and Clyde, that got us through after the show closed. Because every time those eyes popped up, whether it had anything to do with Bonnie and Clyde or not.
Yeah. I remember I had to, for 42 Balloons, we got told to put the eyes and then the picture that would become the poster, all of us at the same time on a day. And because it was me and Evie Hoskins, who she had done a workshop Bonnie and Clyde in the other palace, everybody thought it was Bonnie and Clyde related. And it was just like, I was like, I say it's not. And then the Bonnie and Clyde social media page was like, well, we're going to lean in on this. We're going to get involved. And it just turned into like, I'm not massive on social media, but my phone was going bonkers. And I was like, what is happening? Like, people were just dying to know what was coming. But yeah, the eyes, that's another thing, man. I just don't know how that all kick-started.
I don't know how it became such a big thing. I just remember seeing it the first couple of times. I'm like, okay, maybe they're trying to tease something. But a lot of the time, they put it up there, not teasing anything. They just put it up there just to fuck with people.
Just to throw everyone off, I know. Kim would message me, the eyes are back, the eyes are back. And I'm like, yes.
Good marketing. It worked. Like, but I think like I genuinely, I don't know if there was ever a conscious plan for the eyes to become a thing. I think it became a little bit of a joke, and then fans latched to it, and then that was it. Now it's like the Bonnie and Clyde do the eye thing, or anyone from the cast or anyone involved with Bonnie and Clyde does the eyes. It's like, what's happening?
Yeah, I think with fans like latching onto it now, I think there's a thing going around of, oh, will there be like merchandise with the eyes on it, or will there be eyes dotted around the Garrick?
I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. I wouldn't put it past them. I think that would be great. I would love to see a Bonnie and Clyde poster with the eyes replacing Jordan and Frankie's eyes. That would be great. I would wear that.
I can only imagine that. Like we say, how the eyes managed to become this massive thing is just like, I think it baffles everyone. I don't know about the rest of the cast, but I reckon it baffles them all the time. Like, as soon as the eyes pop up, it's like, right, turn your phone on silent or something.
Yeah. No, it was just nuts. It was so funny, like, but then we all started to lean in on it and we all had fun with it. So we probably didn't make it any better. we all just enjoyed it.
Yeah, of course. So moving on briefly from Bonnie and Clyde, let's talk 42 Balloons. So how did that come around? Because obviously that was a very short run.
Yeah, I just got it was kind of interesting actually because it was the first time that I'd done something where usually, my agent submits me for everything. If there's something that pops up that I'm interested in, particularly that might pass her by, I will contact her and be like, don't know if you've seen this, really interested. But she actually reached out to me about 42 Balloons and was like, these people have got in touch about seeing you coming into audition for this, which was also a bit of a first. Usually I asked to be seen. So then I went in and initially, I was still doing Bonnie and Clyde at the first round. So I was just like happy to be seen for something. But as soon as I heard the music, I was like, oh, this is a little bit of me. I really love this. And the more and more music they sent me and the more of the story that I got, the more and more obsessed I got. And I just felt like there was something really special about it. So when I got offered the job, like, I knew immediately. My agent's always like, we'll take a couple of days to think about it. But I was just turned to my girlfriend and was like, I'm taking this job. Like, definitely. It was very sad that it was only 4 Mondays, 4 shows over 3 Mondays. But I just think that it's something special. I think it's going to be another cult show. I think because the music's so good. But now it's all up in the air. We just got to see what happens next, really, with the producers and the writers and all of that, because of the workshop. The stage concert was very much a workshop to see what worked and what didn't work in front of an audience. So it's kind of sad for me because I was like, yeah. And now it's like similar to when Bonnie and Clyde ended. I just kind of have to let it go and hope that like Bonnie and Clyde, it comes around again and I get a phone call and I get to do it again. But if not, it was a dream and everybody was another little family and it was great. But yeah. Fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And obviously, I'm just thinking with 42 Balloons, obviously you were in the same venue as Six. Was it weird going to that venue knowing that apart from the day you were in there, Six would be overtaken?
Yeah, well, it was kind of funny because we shared the girls' dressing rooms. Obviously they weren't there, but we would use their tables and stuff. And I know some of us, I think, left little messages and they got invited to come and see the show. And then we got invited to go and see their gala night. But yeah, it was kind of strange. For me, I'd never seen Six, very controversially. I had never seen it. But I remember being in my dressing room and having we had all the Six stuff. And yeah, it was kind of weird, but it was more weird when I went to see Six then after finishing 42 Balloons, because there was points where I was just like, this is our stage. Even though that was never the case, because I'd saw it the other way around, I was like, this is my stage. That's where I sit in this line. That's where I sing in this bit. But it was obviously the complete other way around. But yeah, but the six is amazing and it's so cool. I went to see it and I was like, why have I waited so long for this? But
it is one of them shows. I haven't seen the full show, but I've listened to the soundtrack multiple times, and it's that sort of concept, I think, as well, where it's taking the queens and actually giving them sort of their own story, really. And it's why hasn't this been done sooner? I've seen a lot of shows on the West End recently where it's why hasn't this show been brought forward sooner?
I think Toby's done. Toby and Joe and I'm saying Kate Moss, Lucy Moss have done such an amazing job. I mean, there's so many more people involved than that. It was just first brains in my head, but they've done such a great job. And the thing about it is I think I always like didn't go because I was just like, oh, it's just gonna be one of those shows where it's just loads of nice numbers, and then we come out of it and we go, wasn't that fun? So I was like, I'll see it at some point because there's 6 women in it. One of my friends will be in it eventually, and that's when I'll go. And now I do have a friend in it, but I still haven't seen it with them in it. But like I was like, okay. So when I went to see it, I was actually blown away because it not only is like the music, and not only is it a really good night out and it's an hour of amazing tunes, but it has so much to say and it's so important and it's so like it's such a great piece and it's so smart, especially with like what it's then presenting to like younger generations that it's ultimately reaching out to, and the sort of story that it wants to tell. Ah, I was like, wow, I felt like such a fool for waiting so long to see it. I was like, I'm a twat. But before we went in as well, they interviewed me and Evie before we went in for the video, and we do feature very briefly. Nothing I said gets put in the video because I said I was just like, I'm just excited to be here. Like, whereas Evie actually had some amazing points to make about why it's such a great show, and I was just like, can't wait.
Just stand there, smile, and wave, essentially.
Oh, in the video, I think we appear for maybe a second or two, and you can just see the fear in my eyes where I have to come up and she just delivered about, I mean, they use about 30 seconds of what she says, but she's just delivered about 3 minutes of like useful material, and I was like, I can't follow that. So I just like,
and you're like, all right. Yes.
thumbs up and smile. I'm all for it. Yeah, can't wait. But I had such a good time. I actually like, I can't wait to go again. I'll be back to see that. I'll be one of the people. I'll be one running around the 652.
So obviously, with like West End shows, are there any shows currently on the West End that have sparked your interest, or would you maybe like to perform in once Bonnie and Clyde is finished?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I could go on for days. There's so many. I'm really gutted that Come From Away is closed. I think that it was. I went to see it about 5 or 6 times when it was on because I just loved it, and I'm so gutted I haven't got a chance to do it, and I'm hoping that it'll continue to tour forever and I'll get a chance to do that at some point. But for me, mostly the stuff that's on at the moment, I'd love to do some of the like I love doing new work. I think I've really discovered that that's what I really enjoy doing. Yeah. But there are some longer running shows that really got me going. Like Phantom of the Opera was the first musical I've ever seen, so I'd kill to do that. Some part in that. I'd love to do Wicked because I remember like that was one of the first musicals where I started to like move, because I basically just knew Phantom of the Opera from like 4 to 14. And then I discovered like Les Mis, and Wicked was like the first sort of like poppy, more modern thing that I heard of. So I'd love to go into Wicked and do like Fiyero. And there's loads of them. I'd love to do Rent. I'd love to do a Jonathan Larson. I'd love to do Tick Tick Boom. There's so many amazing musicals. I think that we're in a really great space in the West End. As sad as it is that we've got so much stuff that's closing or closed, we have this opening for new work, and I think that new work's getting really exciting. And I'm really glad to see that British new work like Six is being given more of a stage and being more opportunities for it to shine. And I do a lot of demos and stuff with writers that want to put on musicals and are writing musicals, and there's so much amazing work that's coming through. So I'm really excited to see what we will continue to develop, as much as like there's all those amazing classics like your Wickeds and your Phantoms and Les Mis and stuff. I'm really excited to see where the future is going to go.
Yeah, there's a lot of shows closing. I think we're going through this period now where there are so many shows closing on the West End. We got shows like Anne Juliet that is now coming to an end.
Yeah, very surprised so soon.
I love the show
for a while, but yeah, I love the show. I went to see it. I went to see it just when I met Jordan doing Bonnie and Clyde, and we all decided to go because we knew he was finishing, because he was still doing it in the first couple of weeks of rehearsals. And it was one of those shows where I didn't know what to expect, and I hadn't listened to anything. I didn't know anything about it, except that supposedly it was really fun. And I had I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did. Another one of those ones of being like, oh, This will be a bit of a laugh. I'll have a good time. And I came out of it and I just couldn't get it out of my head.
The music is just amazing. It's like they chose just the right songs for everything.
Yeah, 100%. And it's also like really great to see like really good, like obviously there's a lot of shows and there's lots of push for representation, but it's nice to see when representation is done. And not only is it done, but it's done incredibly well. Like it's smart and it's really talented people and it's fantastic. And it does like sometimes you worry that with moves of representation, people just do it to tick boxes. And Juliet is an example of like this isn't about ticking boxes, it's about going, we're gonna write a part that is non-binary and is fantastic for what it is. Like for not for what it is, that sounds like I'm undercutting what I'm saying. But we're gonna write this part and make it spectacular instead of just writing the part to tick a box. I thought, yeah, I loved it. I'm gutted it's closed. But it's going on a tour. I think it'll be one of those shows that just tears constantly.
Yeah, I think whenever I see Anne Juliet, the one thing I love watching audiences' reaction to is when Romeo comes back from the dead. It is always the best moment to watch audiences react to, even if you know it's coming. Like know, those who have seen the show, you know what I mean when Romeo comes back. It's always funny watching audiences' reaction because they're always like, "Oh wow, okay, this is happening."
Yeah, I remember watching it and being like, I thought Jordan was in this show. and then that happened and I was like, oh my God. And Jordan had told me that he wanted me to shout Yas Queen at the top of my lungs, which I did. As a good friend you should do when your mate makes an entrance. But yeah, like I was blown away. And also I just really enjoyed the relationship between Shakespeare and Anne Hathaway. I just thought all of the relationships, and there's also a fantastic joke in the second act, which I won't spoil, that is marinated for the whole show. And it is such a simple joke. And it's fantastic when it finally lands because you don't see it coming. But when it lands.
Oh, yeah, I think I know the joke you're on about.
You definitely know what I'm talking about. But when it lands, I actually think I missed the 5 minutes afterwards because I was howling. Like I didn't watch the show. I was buckled over laughing.
It's brilliant. I think with Anne Juliet, I've been lucky enough to see a numerous amount of covers, and it's all brings us back really with Bonnie and Clyde at how audiences are really open to understudies, a lot more open than I think they used to be. So with with Anne Juliet, I've seen 4 different Romeos. I think I've seen Jordan, Alex, Tom, and Carl.
Nice,
and
yeah.
all of them are different. All of them are different, and I love it. And it's the same with Bonnie and Clyde. I've seen Barney as Clyde. I've seen Alistair as Ted because he went on the same day as Barney went on for Buck as well.
Yeah. That was it. Yeah, God, that was such a crazy day. We had some crazy days on that show. Yeah, I think it was really interesting actually because I took on the Offstage Swing cover track. I really believed, like I was like, oh, gosh, if I ever get to go on, everyone's going to be raging that I'm on. Like I had this like belief that I was going to have to, like, anytime I went on, it was going to be like having to prove myself or blah blah blah, and I was really like anxious about it. And then obviously I remember then I went on as a swing, and the day that I went on for my West End debut, there's a brilliant video that someone has caught in the front row where I'm like just walking backwards, taking it all in clearly before I leave, and everyone just comes over to me. And it's a video that I have saved on my phone because I'm just like, it's just this little wholesome moment. It's about 10-15 seconds long. But it was also like anytime I then went on as a swing, was seeing people being like, oh, I've seen 2 of your swing parts. I've seen you do this, but I can't wait to see you do them all. And people being like that they wanted to see my swing bingo. And I was like, what are you talking about? And seeing all of these things. And then I always remember the day that Barney went on for the first time. And I think he was the first cover to go on for a principal track. And I was watching the show. I was watching the show in the circle. And our company manager, Paul, at the time came down and tapped me on the shoulder. And I was like, yes. Like it was just before Ray's Little Hell, and the show hadn't stopped yet. And I just got this tap on the shoulder, and I was like, "What?" And it was like, "You're on," and I was like, oh God, like what's happened?
Oh yeah, I think Lauren mentioned this. This was the day where I think Lauren was making her Bonnie debut. She was originally on with Jordan, and then Jordan went off just before Raise a Little Hell. So Barney had to go on.
Barney went on for his first show, and the first thing that he did was Raise a Little Hell. He had no warm up, and I just remember like being sat there and just being like, "Here's your mic, here's your costume, you're going on," and I was like, "Oh gosh, okay." Like, and
I always wonder with that when that happened, how long did the show stop for? And I bet it was weird for the audience. I bet it was weird for the audience going, right, there's Jordan. Hang on, who's this?
No, well, they made an announcement. And actually, the audience were really, because obviously, I think as well, like one, it had that sort of cult following anyway. But Raise Little Hell is such a like it's one of the most challenging numbers in the show. So I think like, yeah, it was a weird moment, but I think Barney smashed it out of the park, and he immediately presented his version of Clyde. And I think audiences were just like, wow, okay. Because he came in with such a bang, because he had this big number to open on, I think that people just immediately were like, actually, this is going to be fine. This guy's got it. And yeah, that was just such a weird day. And I just went on for that, and then the end of then act two. But yeah, those moments are just sometimes sometimes you get a bit of a hint. I remember, I think the first time I went on for Buck, George had been feeling unwell for a couple of days, so that I always knew there was a possibility that I was gonna get the phone call. But it was the same, like sometimes somebody like went over in an ankle or slightly hurt themselves in the middle of a show. And as a swing, you would just be like, right, I might not go on. Like, because I get a bit wind up sometimes when people are like, oh, I'm going to go off, I'm going to go. And then they don't. And you're like, right, don't stress me out if you're not going to do it. Like, if they're like, I've hurt myself, like they let you know that something's wrong. You're like, okay, cool. Because then you just start prepping, because then you're like, right, if anything happens, I'm ready to go. But like sometimes people will be like, oh, I think I'm gonna go off, and you'd be like, oh God, and you'd really panic, and then they'd be like, no, I'm fine. Like 10 minutes later when they'd calm down. But yeah, those moments are scary, but you just get used to it actually, weirdly. Once you've done them all once, you're like, ah, oh, cool. Rant. But once you know that show.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's the quickest you've ever been swung on?
I'd say that one because I literally just threw on Jordan's prisoner outfit, because I didn't have a prisoner outfit of my own at that point. So I just threw on Jordan's prisoner outfit, threw on my shoes, and I don't even think I put a mic on. I think it was that quick.
Well, I mean, for that scene, you didn't really need one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I didn't sing now until the start of Act 2. And by the time that they'd got me, because I had been quite silly and hadn't told them exactly where I was going to sit. So by the time they got me, Barney was pretty much ready to go. So then I just was like, look, I don't need a mic until the start of Act 2. We'll worry about that later. Let's just get through the end of Act 1. Because also I could see that Barney had this like adrenaline going through him. So I was like, we just got to go. Like,
yeah, we need to get going now.
Yeah, we just need to go, because the longer we sit here and think about it, the scarier it becomes. Like this, we know it. Let's do it. And yeah, and things do go wrong. Like I said, like when I first went on for the Hamer track, and Nat said to me, she was like, just enjoy it. Things are going to go wrong, and that's fine, but enjoy it, and you can worry about the notes later. And I was like, yeah. And I think I kind of lived by that for the rest of it. It's like, just go out, have fun.
Yeah. So before we go to audience questions, because some of them are funny and some of them are actually quite serious, let's talk about some of the other projects you've been involved in. So let's talk about the 39 Steps.
Yeah. So 39 Steps was a weird one. Basically, we were coming out of lockdown. It was one of my first auditions out of lockdown, and it was a comedy play. which I think this would be kind of weird to say, but up until that point, I'd never done comedy in any sense. I didn't think I could be a funny actor or character. I was like, this isn't what I do. I play serious, crying, breaking down and screaming parts. That's my vibe. Or villains. So I was like, I can't do comedy. And I'd been cast as one of the clowns. If you don't know the show, there's 4 parts. There's Hannah, who is Hannah for the whole show. There's the female part who plays all of his love interests, and then there's the 2 clowns who play everyone else. And sometimes they play up to 6 people in a scene, and they like just keep jumping between characters. And I was like, I can't do accents, I can't do comedy. I'm never going to get this job. And I ended up getting the job, and I had to go over to Germany and do this. And I think that what I learned on that job is why I got Bonnie and Clyde, because it was just this idea of just being like, no matter how funny a scene's going to be, just play it for what it is and the serious, like make the character bonkers, but like their logic and how they think still has to make sense. Because that's also where I learned to improvise and do things on the fly. And there's so many nights where I did things because I thought it was funny, and they always crashed and burned. They never went down well, and it went terribly. So a lot of the time it was more like, how weird, how wacky can I make this character and their tics and stuff, so that when they do things, it's logical and it makes sense, but it's hilarious because of who that person is. But yeah, it was great. It was a really good challenge. But I think, yeah, a lot of the stuff I learned on that job really helped then when I played someone like Buck, because it would have been very easy to just go in for the obvious laughs with Buck. But I think even George, like, it's very much about playing him as he is, which is, you know, he's just a simple man who's trying to make a change in his life. You know, he may not always be the smartest, like, you know, the sharpest tool in the shed, but like he isn't ridiculously stupid. You could play him ridiculously stupid and you'd probably get a lot of laughs, but like there's a sincerity to him, and I think it's his sincerity and how hard he tries to be a better person and keeps feeling that there's a humor in that, because we feel for him and his attempts, even though they never work out, which then also leads to his tragedy.
I think one of my favourite sort of funny moments with Buck is just before he starts getting shot at, and it's the whole Twinkies joke.
Twinkie joke, yeah.
Twinkie joke.
Hilarious.
Every time the Twinkies joke, even if you know it's coming, but George would do it slightly differently, and it's always the 2 in the Twinkies.
George is a nightmare, because so I found out that the Twinkie joke, this is a fun bit of inside knowledge, the Twinkie joke when it was written was a line. I don't know what the line was, but there was an actual line and it was always written. And supposedly during the concert, George just had this tendency to like improvise. And then this became like this running thing of like, you just never knew how he was going to describe it, because George just chose to do it differently every day. And it got to the point that I remember the first time I covered Buck, I was terrified, because I was like, I have to improvise and it has to be good, because George gets a laugh for this every time. But I think for that, but what, like, you know, once you do something for a while, you do just go, I had like 4 or 5 versions of it, and I was like, right, I'll just pick one on the day. But like, yeah, he's a really funny guy anyway. It drives me nuts. And he'll just make stuff up on the fly. And even like backstage, he's so funny because he's so quick and witty. But yeah, his Twinkie bit is fantastic, but it's terrifying when you're like, he's really good at that and he's just made it up, and no, I'm gonna have to make one up, and if it's terrible, I look awful.
Yeah, the Twinkie joke. The amount of times that I'd be watching that scene and just sort of turn one eye to Jordan and see Jordan genuinely look slightly confused, like, what's he going to say now? How's he going to do it? Because there were times where Jordan, I think, must have been genuinely confused at what George is trying to say.
Rehearsals where they had to stop the scene because George would get them to corpse. Like, George would say something, they'd all start laughing and they'd have to like stop and go back because they couldn't keep going. There was lots of like little cheeky moments like that. But yeah, there's also lots of weird ones, because there's a line as well that Buck says, and it's really funny because I understand why it's a funny line and the audience always laugh at it. But as an actor, it's one of the most sincere moments Buck has. And it's just before what you'd call a dream when he goes, I have everything I want too, baby, but there's still things I want. And like it always got a laugh. And it's like this really beautiful, sincere moment. And like no matter how you played it, it just always got a gag. And it became about, I remember talking to George being like, I don't know what to do here. Cause like I want to keep speaking, but the laughter's so loud because they're enjoying the line so much. And like we would genuinely talk about ways to like still be truthful to the sincerity, but give the audience that moment if they wanted to laugh. And it was such a weird thing I'd never had to think about before. Because it's like, well, if I rattle through and don't give them their laugh that they want to enjoy, then I'm just being a diva, aren't I? Like, because then I'm not letting them catch the rest of my line. But yeah, it's really weird one. But yeah,
And of course, one of the things that happened at the Arts, which was, I think, genuinely blew me away, was the Bonnie and Clyde fan night, which happened.
Yeah.
How nuts was that? Like when it was announced, I don't think any of us actually expected how nuts it was going to end up being.
I don't think we expected how nuts it was going to end up being. I mean, for me, it was chill because I wasn't on and I got to go home early. So what was that? But yeah, there was. I remember being with Annie as we sort of like filmed stuff. She was filming stuff for the social media out in the lobby, and I was just sort of strolling about. But yeah, I don't think that we expected it. And then the Q&A was really, really popular as well. Even Newsies have now done this fan night as well. And Heathers do them and they do the sing-alongs and stuff. Like it's so interesting to see that how much people just eat it up and they love it. But it's great. I mean, it's fabulous as a cover to be able to go like when you do like a debut and people have come because you've made your debut in a new track is like really weird, but it's really lovely because you're like, oh, because sometimes you worry when you go on that people are going to be like, oh, it's the understudy. Oh no. When really it's actually
I remember when I first started going to like theatres, it always used to be that thing of, oh great, there's an understudy on. But now a lot of the times I'll just go to a theatre just like for the understudies because I just love the different interpretations.
Yeah.
Like it took me ages to try and catch a Barney Clyde show because he only ever went on in the first run. He only used to go on like once a week.
Yeah.
It was always one of them days where it's like, I need to try and get down there.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, he's got 2 days a week this time.
Yeah, this time around he's got we were me and Christine were talking about this. We found it funny how Barney's got 2 days as Clyde this time around, but Lauren's still got 1.
Yeah, I mean, I have no clue how it works. It's no one to like. I think it's more of a discussion with like Jordan and Frankie and the production team and I'm really me. I have no idea. I was just like Jordan. Barney just told me he's like I get 2 shows this week. I was like great, happy days. But yeah, this is sort of yeah. I don't get it at all. Like, but yeah, because it is the same. I think that if someone misses the matinee, then if you go on for the matinee, you usually always go on for the evening as well. Because that idea, if you can't.
Yeah, I've noticed that with a lot of shows where there'll be an understudy on for the afternoon. Like they'll say they'll be scheduled for the afternoon, but a lot of the time they might even end up going on for the evening as well.
I think if it's scheduled, then sometimes not. But I think like if someone is sick and can't do the matinee, but they're like, oh, but I could maybe do the evening. I think they're just not meant to. I think it's like that sort of if you throw someone on in the matinee, then they're meant to be doing the. I don't know. I literally that was like my first time swing covering, and I can't keep up with it. So when it comes to like why Barney is 2 and Lauren is 1, I'm like, no clue. I'm just like lucky then. They've got shows.
Of course. Now I'm going to hand over to Christine to do her weird question because, as we know, her last weird question sent Lauren into a weird confusion frenzy for a few minutes.
All right, so time for weird question. I will ask some other questions as well. All right, for the weird question, if you could be a shoe, which one would you be, the left side or the right side, and why?
I
Yes.
really thought that was going to be like style of shoe, but specific foot. Um, but I think for me, there's a simple logic to this. I'd be the left side purely because most people are right-footed. So if someone's getting a kick, it's going to be the right shoe. So I can have a simpler life if I'm a left shoe.
That
What that
makes
says about
total
me.
sense.
Yeah, that's my logic. I don't want to be kicked or thrown around or smacked against the football over and over again. So the left shoe life might be easier.
That is a lot less confusion than what Lauren had.
Yeah, that's
Lauren
very
spent
true.
about 2.5 minutes just going, like, Lauren for 2.5 minutes was like, what? What?
Man, I love a good hypothetical. Sometimes it's just like, right, come
It's
on, do
fun that way. Now, what style of shoe would you be?
it.
Follow-up question to the follow-up question.
I mean, I think if I had to be a shoe, I would be a Doc Martin, purely because again, they're sturdy. I'm probably going to live longer.
That is very true. That is
That's my
very-
thought. All about longevity, mate. As about
Yes.
staying alive.
They live forever. Yes.
They live for a long time.
Exactly. All right. Now you mentioned earlier in the interview that sometimes when you're backstage, like you play the Switch and everything. Do you have a favorite game?
Oh, that fifth game on the Switch. I have went through a period during 42 Balloons of Disney Dreamlight Valley, but I feel I'm replaying all of The Last of Us at the moment. So is Barney. We discuss that quite regularly. We discuss that a lot at the moment. Favorite game though. Oh, I don't know. Oh, I really don't know. Favorite game, favorite game. I really love RPGs, which is why I'm trying to think of one. I really love Divinity 2 Original Sin. I literally anytime someone's like, I'm gonna buy an RPG to play with you, what should I get? I'm like, Divinity 2. We'll have a great time.
Excellent. Love it, love it, love it. Are you looking forward to Hogwarts Legacy coming onto the Switch?
Oh, yeah, this is really again, spoke to Barney about this today. I'm Hogwarts Legacy is just such a funny one because I'm also one of those people that's like, oh, I really don't want to give J.K. Rowling any money, but also I really want to play Hogwarts Legacy. So I haven't really decided what I'm going to do. I also have a PS4, and Hogwarts Legacy isn't coming out for either of those consoles till at least April. So I have time to consider my morals and decide what I'm going to do. If I had a PS5, I probably would have caved.
Oh, excellent. Yes, I know here in the US, we already have it for PS5 and PS4. Now, our Switch doesn't come out until I think June or July. It's like crazy.
Plenty of time to debate them what they like doing. Yeah, I don't
Yes,
know.
it's like I'm up in the air too. It's like, do I want to give more money or no, I really want to play this. I'm with
I'm
you on
not.
that one.
Yeah, it's really yeah, it's a weird one. You chat about it all day, but like, yeah, it's one of those ones where it's like she's already got so much money. Is my money really gonna add or take away that much? But also, it's like a principle thing. But also, the game looks good.
It
And
does. It's like, yes. It's like,
We'll see.
pulled me back in, pulled me back.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's like over it for so long, and then it's like, here we go, boom.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
All right, so food wise, I know food is different between America and England and everything like that. What is your favorite food? Like something that you can't live without?
Pizza. Uh, well, one, it's the smartest answer you can have because I can change what I put on it every day. If I had to live on it every day, I could put, just cheese today. Oh, you know what? Fire some red onions on there. It's got variety, but also I went vegetarian in the last couple of years, and I had to give up a lot of foods that were my favorite foods. But pizza, it never changed. It's
I
never
know
betrayed.
you put so many veggies on that, and it's great. It's
I was going to say, if we're talking pizza, is it pineapple on pizza or not?
No, no pineapple.
No, yes, come on, Charlie.
No, not a chance, please. I mean, to be fair, I'm happy with just some cheese, some extra chilies, and some garlic, and I'm like, all right, that's all I need.
Just put a bit
Plain
more
and
on it.
simple.
Like, I've never understood pineapple on pizza. Like I've done shows where, as like an Amdram, I've done shows where the cast will order pizza in, and there will always be one person who orders a pineapple like pizza in, and I'm like,
Yeah, but they're just
what
doing
is
it
wrong with
to make an
you?
argument. Like, to be fair, if I was in like the States or somewhere, like maybe I would. But the thing about it is a lot of the time people get the Hawaiian pizza. It's like store bought, and I'm like, do I really want a bit of frozen pineapple that's just been reheated and chucked on a pizza? Like, that's not what I enjoy about fruit. If I want fruit, I want it to be fresh. So I don't want a frozen pineapple that's just been defrosted on top of a pizza. No, thank you.
That is true. I actually enjoy pineapple on pizza, but it has to be fresh. And I don't go for the Hawaiian thing. I don't go for ham, but I will go for bacon.
Oh, I mean, yeah, fair play.
Like bacon and pineapple, yes, yeah. But other than that, what's your favorite color?
Oh, my favorite color keeps changing at the moment. I used to always be red. I'm slowly moving towards a green. I don't know if that's just been because I've been away from Ireland for so long that green just reminds me of home, or if I'm just leaning more and more into being a stereotype. Either way, I'll take either answer.
So is it totally different living in Ireland to England? Is there a big difference or not much?
Uh, yeah, there is a difference in the sense of like maybe it's more the idea of living in London and living in Ireland. I think I don't know. I think living in London is different, and just the way that people go about it. People in Ireland will just talk to you, even if they don't know who you are. Ireland, Northern Ireland, they'll just be like hello, like, and then you meet new friends all the time. Like some of my best mates I met while working in a pub, and they would maybe having a drink there, and I would get chatting to them, and then I'd finish my shift, and I would just join them, and then all of a sudden I have a new group of friends. It's kind of strange, whereas I feel like London's a bit of a different vibe. But yeah, they are very different. I mean, I love them both for their own ways, but London's just so big. I don't even think it's a city. I don't know how Americans do it. It's too big. I lived in Glasgow. That was a city. It was like big, but not too big. This is massive.
Obviously, I was going to ask this, talking about pubs. What's your go-to drink?
Pint of Guinness.
Yes.
yeah. This is what I mean by am I just a stereotype? Yeah, I drink I like Guinness, but I mean it can be dangerous in London. You sometimes don't get a nice one. But I think Barney and I tend to go for a pint of Guinness after work a lot. Like it's a nice wind down after a show about guns and murder and death.
It's like bring on the Guinness. Here we go.
Give me a pint, please. Yeah.
I don't understand why I didn't see that one coming as well.
Yeah, it's quite straightforward, but
one side of my brain is going, he's going to say Guinness, is he? And then the other side of my brain's like, no, he might actually say something more less stereotypical.
No,
Nope.
I've like learned that there's, stereotypes are fine. As long as they're done for a bit of crack, it's all right. And for me, I don't mind being a bit of a stereotype because it's a fun stereotype to be.
Obviously, with Ireland, what's your favourite Irish like phrase?
My favorite Irish phrase. I don't know, because I get out of practice with them, and then I like see an Irish friend and they say something and it just makes me smile. I really love who put 50p in the agent. Like I really enjoy like if someone's talking too much and you're just like who put 50p in you? Like it's great. It's one of my favorites. Don't ask me why. Or my granddad always says if someone's being a bit too much, you just go, you think you're a big lad, but a wee coat fits you. Stupid sayings, but I just love them because they're so silly.
Wow. I mean, I'm not, I have no Irish descent in me, but I love a good bit of crack. Like, I just love saying it. It's weird when I say it because everyone's like, oh, Irish. It's like, yeah, that's the only thing I know.
I think what it was is like, I was going to almost say that first. I was going to be like, I'd probably just say, what's the crack? It's the one that I use the most. Or the crack is 90 but like the anti-crack. But like the thing about it is that I just thought that was a boring answer. So I was like, what's something that I when I hear it, it just makes me laugh. And I just love it. Like when someone's just talking too much and just go, who put 50p in you? It's just great. Or wind your neck in or shut your beak. Like all of these like just where they're really insulting, but because they're like so stupid, it's fine. Like you can say it all you want.
It's like right now we can insult each other in Irish phrases.
Yeah, I think if you insult someone creatively, it's fun. Part of the Irish humor.
I was just going to say quickly before we go to questions, let's talk about obviously you're doing Bonnie and Clyde, but also you're doing a concert as well.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so speaking of being really lucky for jobs coming back, I did Dr. Zhivago in 2019 as a one-day only concert. We did two performances in one day. I think it was the 1st of September 2019, and we did it in Cadogan Hall. And it was my first sort of big-ish job. And I got it because there was an open call, and I couldn't go to the open call because I was going to a funeral. And I emailed the producers like, I can't go to the open call. However, I think I'd be really good in this show. Please see me. Unfortunately, I'd just done a voice reel with my friend Max, and I sang one of the songs from the show in this voice reel, and I sent it to them. And really luckily, I got an audition for it, and for the part that I wanted. And then it got announced that Ramin Karimloo was doing it and Celinda Schoenmaker, and I was just like, great, so I'm never going to get this job then. So I went in and I was like, oh, well, I'll just have fun. And I had a really good day, and I just had a laugh because I was like, I'm never going to get the job. And then I got the job. And it was one of the first sort of bigger jobs that I've got. And ever since then, I feel like because I didn't have a lot of confidence when I graduated drama school. I didn't get a lot of work at the beginning. But after this, things started picking up. But I was still very, green and like made lots of silly mistakes that if I always look back and go, oh God, if I could do that again. And then during lockdown, I got a phone call or a text from Jamie Lambert being like, we're thinking of doing Dr. Zhivago again at the Palladium on the 7th of May. Well, it wasn't that specific, but gotta sell tickets, don't I? But so I was like, yeah, would you like to do it? And I was like, yeah, 100%. And yeah, that was kind of it. And so yeah, I'm going back into that, and that'll be at the Palladium on the 7th of May, which is a Sunday. And so it's on our day off of Bonnie and Clyde. So that week's gonna be very stressful. But yeah, we'll do like 5 days rehearsal, and then we put it on. And yeah, Ramin Karimloo, Kelly Matheson, Celinda Schoenmaker's back, Nadim Naaman. I'm actually not too sure. I haven't met him yet. I need to ask how to pronounce that. And then yeah, there's loads of new cast members to it as well, whose names I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's a great show. I love Dr. Zhivago. I used to watch the film with my granny when I was a kid. And it's a really good part of just, he's very much a Marius and an Enjolras. He starts the show as a Marius, like, yeah, peaceful protest and let's do things for change. And then, the government beats the life out of him, and he finds out his fiance has been groomed by a bourgeois man with lots of money. And then he just becomes a war criminal and starts, killing people. It's great fun. Very cheery show.
So obviously with this concert, are you returning in the same role that you played back in 2019, or are you doing a different track?
Yeah, no, so I'm doing the same track. So I'm doing the same part. So in the show, you've got Yuri Zhivago, which is Ramin's character, and he has his wife, Tanya, played by Kelly, and then Lara, who is the woman that he falls in love with, his sort of extramarital affair. And I play Pasha Antipov, who is Lara's fiance. No, they get married. Starts the show as Lara's fiance. They get married. And he goes to war for reasons, and she ends up going and joining the war as a nurse to try and find him, which is how she meets Yuri, and they begin this sort of extramarital affair. But little does she know that her husband is going to come back into her life, and it's a massive sort of epic over the course of several years about the Russian Revolution. And if you like those sort of like massive orchestras, massive sounds, there's a quintet in Act 2, and it's one of the most beautiful pieces of work that and maybe one of my favorite things Lucy Simon, who passed away last year, actually has written. So I think it'll be really nice to do it again. She really enjoyed the concert the last time, so I think we'll all be kind of thinking of her when we get to do it again this time. So yeah, it'd be nice.
Oh gosh,
Big
I mean,
epic.
I love how you get to do these. Like, I love how that week is going to be like, cool, right? Bonnie and Clyde, Bonnie and Clyde, Bonnie and Clyde. Yes.
Yeah, well, this is what I mean. Is like I'll be doing like on Saturday, let's say I'm doing my normal track, like I'll be doing my, being Southern American and being like, we were made in America, like, and then literally the next day I'll be doing like Russia rise, and it's just like big legit of like massive orchestra, like join in the rally, speak out. Like I get to do it in my own accent, which is fun. Unless it changed that. Last time I did it in my own accent, but it's more like vocally sounding is a completely different world than Bonnie and Clyde. So it's going to be a really fun week to be doing like two polar opposites all week. But that's exciting. I'm like, yeah, great. Happy days.
Of course. And now on to our favourite part of the show, which is, of course, the audience questions. So obviously over on Instagram, we asked for any questions. Some of them are quite hilarious and a lot of them are quite serious, which surprises me, considering when it was announced.
Yeah, I know. I've nothing serious to say.
I felt like when that went out, I was like, right, how many people are going to bring up like some of the stupid shit that Charlie has done during the first run? And surprisingly, not many people, actually. Not many people.
Oh, really? I was waiting for like, there's a photo of me with no top on and a blue cycle helmet on, and I was like, that'll probably come up. Like, there's been loads of like little photos that I didn't want to get leaked of me mucking around backstage that somebody then put out, and I was like, oh crap. But yeah, we did. I tell you, man, when you're in offstage swing, you get up to mischief, or I do anyway.
Of course. So we'll start off with the most stupidest one. The first one is how much chaos are you and Lauren planning to cause this time round?
Me and Lauren don't cause that much chaos. I really don't know in this game. Like, I don't think Lauren's too nice to cause chaos. I think it's more that I get Lauren into trouble. That's probably more accurate. Are we going to cause much chaos? Yeah, I'd say there'll be a level of chaos because I know that Lauren and me tend to do a lot of the social media stuff. And so we tend to try and see how wild we can take it. Like the idea of doing the quiz with the gun was my idea, although we didn't think that would get put in the vlog.
That was my favorite part. That was just hilarious.
Yeah, Barney's mum and dad got him a Nerf gun as a present. We actually all signed it and we were gonna like sell it, and I don't know whatever happened to it. But yeah, and we had all these games. Like we had one where we would sit in the dressing room like this and try and shoot through people's fingers and record it in slow motion to see who could do it. But then yeah, I told Lauren originally we were gonna do like on the day that we filmed the vlog that we were gonna just tell everyone that I was gonna shoot them, that they had to try and survive backstage. But then we ended up having people being swung on and people were sick. And so we were like, oh crap, we can't do that because nobody will be up for it. So then instead we were like, let's do a quiz where if you don't get the answer right, I shoot you. And people really responded. Actually, people that ended up coming up to me being like, can I do the quiz, please? Like, I think it was Al was really keen. I was like, can I do the quiz? And even like some of the band members came up and they were like, we've heard there's a quiz where we can get shot. And I was like, yes. But then I had to come up with music questions and that was really difficult.
There were some funny moments with like getting shot in the quiz. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Alistair's, because it was like, how many deputies are there? And he named them, like one of them wrong. I can't remember which one he said wrong. He said something and then someone else. I can't remember what the actual answers were. But you were like, he's not a deputy.
Yeah, I shot him and he just went, ooh. Like, the other one that was really good, but I don't think it made the cut, was I asked Nick Barslow about 4 questions. And one of them was so specific. It was like, in the score, what song is number, because obviously in the score there's all of the like transitional music as well. It was like, in the score, what song is number whatever, and the answer is Redhead Please. And I was like, nobody will get this, and he got it in a second, like just straight away. And I was like, crap. Like that was my victory question, like no one's gonna get this. But
oh god. So next question, I'll read out the username for this one, and this one's from the Charlie McCullagh fan page. Yes.
gone.
They're so much fun. they asked, "What's your favorite part about performing?"
My favorite part about performing is it's really like, I mean, it's lots of fun. And I think that, you know, you always have to remember that it's a lot of fun, because sometimes you can get really stressed out. But I think for me, the favorite thing is storytelling. I love stories. I love video games. I love books. I will just anything where it like tells me a story. It's like actually some of the reason I struggle with pop music, because if there's not a narrative, it's things just don't pull me in. And I really enjoy I think that's the fun thing about doing musicals, regardless of like what part you play. Um, you know, everybody has a really important responsibility. Everybody is responsible for just telling a story. And obviously you can get really worried because you have a big note or you have a speech or you have a line or things go awry. But really it's just we've got, you know, even if you're auditioning and you've got 3 people in front of you, you've got 7 people in front of you, like you've got these people that have come to or have asked you there to hear you tell a story, be that through words or song. And I think that's great. And I think theater is so special because it's like you could have hundreds of people who have all chose to take that time to just get a story from you and that are gonna like believe that you are I don't know like a criminal from the 1930s, you know, even though they know you're not, but they'll choose to believe that you are. Like it's great. I think it's something really special about that, and it's every night's different, and it's the bonds that you also make with the audience. Like during 42 Balloons, there's a number at the end called Up and Away, and Larry talks a lot in third person about himself. And it's the first time near the end of the second act, he stops talking to the audience and he's purposefully staged so that he's never facing them. But in this song, he breaks that rule and he finally starts speaking to the audience again. And then he speaks in first person about himself to the audience, which he's never done. And getting to watch people react as they slowly realized why he's speaking to them and what he's exactly saying to them. I remember in the first night, I wrecked me. I really struggled to finish the scene because I had such a strong reaction to seeing these people realize what this character was going to do and seeing their sort of impulsive response to that. And I was like, this is great. It was also one of the reasons why I was like, oh my God, I love this show. But like in general, I was like, when you get those moments where you have this shared bond with an audience for an hour, 2 hours of a night, it's great. It's fabulous. It's so cool. And especially how friends make friends. It's great. It's so cool. Like all the connections.
Like storytelling is always a fun part of like going to see a show for me as well. A show that recently that I've seen twice that just blows my mind at how they're able to do the storytelling, and that is Moulin Rouge down at the Piccadilly Theatre. The fact that they're telling a story from the minute you walk in, I love those sort of like, I mean, Newsies, you know, as well, you know, immersive productions. I genuinely love it if you can hook an audience in. Even before the show starts, if you can hook them in, that's brilliant, even before the show starts.
Yeah, another great one, if you really enjoy that, is The Burnt City that Punch Drunk are doing, which is all told through like dance and physical theater. And like you get brought in separately and you all have to wear masks to hide your identity from each other, and you get separated from the people you go in. Me and my partner went to see it, and she actually ended up getting called in before me and I got brought in after her. And the way that the Burnt City works is that there's 2 different countries because it's about the Trojan War. And I was in Greece. I started the show in Greece and she started the show in Troy. So the characters that we followed were completely different. So things that I saw, she didn't see, and things that she saw, I did see. And there were moments that we saw together that when then like it was this just amazing. We didn't. It's like 3-4 hours you're in there, and like it flies by. And then you meet each other in the bar afterwards, and you've had this completely different experience of the same show. And yeah, Newsies is insane. I went to see it a couple of weeks back, and even when you go through getting to your seats, you've got all of the clothes hanging out, and yeah, spectacular.
Yeah, it's the thing with Moulin Rouge for me, it's the Moulin Rouge 15-minute pre-show. 15 minutes before the show starts, they start having some of the ensemble actually coming into like the auditorium as if like the idea is, I do believe it's like you're actually going into the Moulin Rouge Club, and they have a lot of the ensemble like wandering around. Up in the Royal Circle, they've got pages up there. It's like, it's nuts. It is nuts. And I think that also, the thing I loved about Bonnie and Clyde at the Arts was the pre-show music would set the atmosphere so well.
Yeah. I thought, I loved that as an idea as well. And you could see that the lights were on the radio, on the thing, and just there's something about getting you in the mood for a show. I remember, balloons, because we changed the show every time we did it. We had this the actual audio where when Larry goes up and he's on the radio to his fiance on the ground, and like we debated about whether we should start the show with that or whether we should just open. And it was one of the things that we tried differently and got different audience reactions about, would they rather have heard the real life situation to pull them into it, or not heard anything, so they went in blind and they didn't know how it was going to go down. But yeah, it's interesting. But we all love a bit of immersion in the shows. It makes it more fun.
Of course. Next up is what was it like during your Buck debut, and was it nerve-wracking?
It was kind of a weird mixture by that point, because I'd already went on for several swing tracks. So the idea of the fear of not knowing 100% what I was doing was not as strong. I'd done the first act of the show as Buck in like a cover run, so I knew the first act pretty well. I was on with Barney as well, so all of my cover run stuff had been with Barney, because obviously like I only did it then with Jordan whenever I would go on, and my first Buck show I'm pretty sure was with Barney. So I had a relaxed feeling about that, because I was like, I know what he's gonna do and he knows what I'm feeling and blah blah blah. So I was like, great. And then Nat was just on it, because obviously I'd never done Act 2. So me and Nat had a couple of questions. She was like, do you want to run all of Act 2 before the show? And I was like, nah, just tell me where I've got to be, and then tell me if there's anything specific like you need from me. Like, because sometimes, she has to get into very emotional places. And I was like, if there's something George does that helps, like, just, let me know. But otherwise I was like, let's not do it, run any of the scenes so that we can sort of surprise each other. But it wasn't too bad. But there was one big eventful thing that did happen on my first Buck show, which was that on the scene when Ted and the sheriff enter, the sheriff didn't come on stage, so it was just me. It was just Cleve, and we still sort of have a laugh about it. I don't know what happened, but it was just a little mistake on the day, and it was one of those moments where I realized how much I'd grown as a performer, because it just didn't faze me. I was just like, right, great, okay, this has happened. How do we solve this? And it was just me, Cleve, and Nat, and we just had to like make it work. And it was really good fun. I remember my girlfriend was in the audience, and she was like, I didn't even realize anything. She'd seen the show before, and she was like, it hadn't even dawned on me that had happened until afterwards.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite scenes with like Ted and Buck is, I think it's the scene where I think he tells Ted to go fuck himself. I just love that scene, because no matter who you have as Buck, when George does it, he does it in it's sort of like a really sly way. Like, George will just stare Cleve down and go fuck yourself. I just find it funny, like, just that scene, because also first time it comes out of nowhere. I was not expecting him to tell Ted to go fuck himself.
I think it's great, because originally that wasn't the line. Originally the line was go to hell, and then they changed it. And I actually think now it's maybe one of the only swear word. It might be the only swear word in the show. No, there's a couple of other ones, little ones. It's the only time the F word I think gets used. Can't think of another one. But yeah, it was changed to that to give it more bite. But it is, it's a really good moment, and I think it's a great moment. That whole scene, that whole sequence is one of my favorite moments. When you're playing Buck, I think, because the way I always thought about it was during what you'd call a dream. I always was like, by the end of this song, Buck is one round to Blanche's dream. Like I was like throughout it, you know, I'll debate and I'll do things in my head to try and get that to the audience that he's not too sure. But by the end of this song, they have to be a unit and they have to be together on her dream, so that when Ted comes in, he ruins it. And it makes it's this one moment together where they're on the exact same page, where even though he's doubted it and he's been like not sure if he's ever going to be, because this was it, because even when Buck got out of jail in real life, on the way home he got slammed up against a car with it because they were looking for Clyde. Like they treated him awfully, because they just saw prisoners as second class citizens. And I love this moment that they come together in this beautiful moment, sentimental moment, and then because Ted can't control himself, Ted and the sheriff just treat him like absolute dirt, he just snaps. And it's that moment where it really sets the course, I think, for Buck and Blanche's journey for the rest of the show.
Yeah, that I do believe that's the same scene where obviously Ted and Buck are having an argument, and then Ted just pulls the gun out.
Yeah.
And Blanche just goes nuts.
Yeah, 100%. He's like, I mean, it says it in the script that he's ready to execute him on the spot. He doesn't. I mean, he's got a letter to Clyde in his pocket, like, but he's not really done anything. Not to be shot, but yeah, it's
that's what makes Buck's death like really like a lot more heartbreaking, is knowing that he didn't really do that much wrong to an extent.
Well, in the course of the show, because it's also so shortened. One of my favorite things that really breaks my heart in Buck's death is it's the moment when the music comes in. Or I mean, this is my interpretation of the events. At the beginning of the sequence, when you know Clyde and Bonnie leave them, they only really talk about themselves, like, you know, I can't do this, I'm sorry. And it's all about sort of apologizing and trying to like relieve his feelings. But there's a moment in the song where, or in the moment in the scene where they only talk about the other person, and it's as soon as the first chord comes in, like, and it's I can't remember what the line is. It's like I need to start learning them, but I want you, like he's like, I want you to go, like and as soon as he like lands that thought of like, he stops apologizing. He just goes, I need you to go, because I don't want you to, in my head, I don't want you to have to pay for my mistakes, my choices.
Yeah, I think it's like, I want you to go to New Mexico or something like that.
Yeah, it's just like, so I'm trying to remember. It's like, we're gonna get you. I can't remember what the exact wording is, but he's just like, I know it's, I want you to go home, Blanche. And he goes,
Yeah.
I want you to go home, Blanche. And it's just as the music starts coming in. And it really like it's so beautiful, like a line with the introduction of the music, because I think as an actor, one, it really helps you cement that moment, if regardless of what mood you're in. But like, it's just beautiful. It's one of my favorite bits in the whole. Sadistically, it's one of my favorite bits in the whole show. Of just as soon as he's give up in his life, and the only thing he wants is for her to not be affected by these decisions that she never wanted to make. And that's as the music comes in, and it's brilliant. And the throwback to New Mexico, of course, which is the first thing that they talk about, and one of the first things they talk about in that first scene where they're introduced. Yeah, love that sequence. It's heartbreaking because they're the comedy characters. You know, we only think that they're funny. You know, the whole first act, they're mainly there for the laughs, and then they get this amazing arc in Act 2.
There's lines that, you know, Buck says when he first gets out of prison. You know, he's sort of like, I think it's something about like the sentence getting real short.
Yeah. I made my sentence real short. Yeah. She's like expecting him to get like good behavior. He's like, well, I made it even shorter by just leaving. Like, it's great. Very funny, yeah.
I mean, as just briefly, me and Christine will, I think Christine will agree with me. We have a character in a show that we write, or that we've been writing for the last year, where we can't keep him in prison.
Yeah. Fair play. I mean, get him out. More drama.
Like, we do everything to keep him in. We put him in maximum security. we've had a lot. He just won't stay in.
Oh my gosh.
But
yes,
yeah,
in the jail system, in this particular show, there's really no security in there. It's really you walk in, you walk out.
To be fair, I remember when we were doing the research for the show, and they kind of our resident director kind of said to us, like he was like the men could just leave these prisons, like they could just go if they wanted to because it was that bad. But like if you weren't in like a maximum security, it was just a field for a lot of them. But then it was the idea that you'd be hunted down and beat up, and then it would be much worse. So like you chose to stay.
of course.
Yeah.
Obviously, other question. You sort of answered it there, talking about Buck. What's your favorite Buck scene?
My favorite Buck scene. My favorite Buck scene. Ooh. I think in Act 1, it's the argument after When I Drive. In Act 2, it's the what you call a dream sequence, the scene, the song, and then that scene afterwards. Because I think it really like it's just a catalyst moment where there's so much happens and everything comes off the back of it. Like I love the argument as well, but I just really enjoy this scene of these two people coming together, and as soon as they come together, it gets ripped apart. Like the all of the plans they set just fall apart. And I also thoroughly enjoy the scene after When I Drive because I really love the playing the idea of like I have to tell Clyde that I'm going back to jail and I just don't know how to do it.
I love when George does that. George does it so well. At the start of the run, he used to do it like really like straight and narrow. But then as the run went on, he used to play it like a really little kid. Like he would be like, I'm going back to like, and it was hilarious watching George try to tell Jordan that he's going back.
The thing about and that's the other thing is like with George in that sequence, like he's so as an actor, he's incredibly playful, and he's got this part for he's gonna be doing this for 4 months. He's gonna try every gag, and that sequence in particular, he tried something different every single time, and it meant that he just had this inventory of funny ways to play this scene. And all of them worked, and he could just sort of do what he felt in the day to like set that audience up. But that sequence, he's spectacular. Like, I mean, he's just great. Like I was listening to him sing When I Drive with Jordan the other day, and he's just got his voice as well. It's just so distinctive. You can't hear George sing and think it's anybody else but George. You're like, there he is.
Of course, the thing I love about the argument scene in Act 1 after When I Drive is the audience reaction when Clyde hits Bonnie. I love the audience reaction every time. I saw the show like 6 times, and it was almost the same reaction every time. But there was one particular time where I think the audience were like, what the fuck just happened, basically. And it's one of
you can hear it through because at that point in the arch run, we were all backstage getting ready to do God's Arms. And we had lots of like, I think Gracie and Lauren and stuff, we had lots of little games that we used to play where we used to do like this, and it would be to gauge how much of a reaction it would get. So like if you felt like this was an audience, it was going to be a really big reaction, and you'd see who would guess based on the audience that we had, how they'd responded up until that point. We also used to sit with our Bibles like this and see who could like time it, who could time the slap because we couldn't see who could get closest to. Things that you weirdly do when you have just too much time in your hands. Sat waiting for the next scene.
I think the weirdest reaction I've ever had with that scene was obviously Jordan smacks Francis. That happened. That audience reaction is like, oh, like that just happened. But the funniest one is when Francis hit Jordan back. One time did the audience start cheering.
Oh, it happened more than one time. We had points where audiences like would shout out when she hit him back and stuff. We had lots of. You never knew how they were going to take, especially the hit back, because sometimes the hit back would be just as quiet, like because there was so much tension and they didn't know how he was going to reciprocate at that moment. And sometimes we had like, yes, Queens, and like cheers, like rounds of applause. Like you just never knew. But it was also a really interesting one because even in that scene, I think what's really interesting is that the audience was always so curious. I remember one of my first shows is back, and whenever that slap happened and they have that little moment of silence, I remember watching audiences come over to look, like they're sort of panning over to look at me to see what he was going to do about it. Like, so it is really interesting because you could feel the audience be like, oh, I like, is anyone going to say anything? And I think that's the part of it that's so tense. It's like no one's it, not even Blanche. Outspoken Blanche doesn't say a word.
Yeah, it always interests me watching like Buck and Blanche in that scene. Buck just looks outwards. He doesn't even look at Clyde. And it's like, your brother just hit someone. You did something.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. It is really interesting, yeah, because I always thought about that point when Buck grabs Blanche or Buck grabs Clyde. Like I always thought about it like, oh, like my thought was always, I'm gonna grab him because if he's gonna hit someone, he should hit me. Like, no, he shouldn't hit my wife. But then like when Bonnie gets hit, he doesn't do anything. Do you know what I mean? He just turns his back. Well, but I don't know. I think George always looked out. I would either look out or like sort of turn my back on it. I didn't want anything to do with it. So it is a really interesting moment of, I don't know, the time period, I suppose, of just this turning away. And also the idea that Blanche is like, yeah, there you go. Stay away from him. He's a twat. Like, he's so quick. Like, and there is that. It's like, do they do nothing to make her see that she shouldn't be with him or whatever? But then I love when she hits him back. I think it's great. It's also a really fun moment to play as Buck to see how you respond to that. This idea that she's sort of willing to do what he wasn't.
Yeah.
She's willing to back. He didn't do anything to help her, but she's willing to give him what he deserves.
Yeah, of course. Talking about next question is, how many Buck shows did you do at the Arts?
Oh, I've no idea. Like, I think I did more than I expected to do. I had a really strong feeling that I would never be on at all. And I think I ended up doing like just shows in general. I ended up usually having one or two a week. But actual individual Buck shows, like no clue. Like, because you just never knew when they were going to come. There was a like period where there was a lot of sickness in the cast, and I think I went on 3 or 4 times, and then there'd be like maybe the odd one here or there during the train strikes. So yeah, I don't know, completely lost count.
Obviously, there was a period where you and Lauren were both on as Buck and Blanche at one point.
Yeah, that was yeah, because we never really rehearsed together. Because I would always do it with Annie, regardless of what coupling we were doing. But yeah, and then I got to do it with Lauren. Yeah, I think but yeah, it was really funny doing it with Lauren because it was just kind of strange. It was the same even when I did it with Annie, like because I had done Buck so much, like he was my first cover. When then one of them went on, it was kind of weird to be the one that was like more had more experience in those tracks. But I really enjoyed doing it with Lauren because for like what we said about covers is Lauren's Blanche was very different, like completely different. So it was really fun to see how that changed. I think even when Lauren did it with George, like there's a completely different vibe to how that relationship works when you just change one person.
Of
Yeah, it was
course.
really good. Yeah, but me and Lauren had good fun. Like just bullying each other as usual.
So
I said,
next, yeah. Okay. So next one is, where were you when you got the call for the Arts run versus where you were when you got the call for the Garrick?
Where I got the call for the Arts run when I was coming back from the gym and from a shop with my girlfriend. And I was just walking home in the afternoon. And then I got home and told my flatmate, and we got drunk. And then
Yeah.
Perfect.
of course. And then the Garrick. Where was I for the Garrick? I actually don't remember where I was for the Garrick. That's bad, isn't it? Like, um, I remember. I think I think I might have been at rehearsals for balloons, and I don't think that I got. I don't think it was like a phone call. I think I just. I think I missed the call, so I think I just had like an email, being like, um, "This is potentially happening. Here's what you're being offered." So I don't think it was as exciting. I think I was very busy at that point. But yeah, I think I was in rehearsals for 42 Balloons because I knew for a while. Because I remember being asked almost every night after 42 Balloons if I was going back. And I'd be like, nobody tells me nothing. I don't know. Just my immediate response to anything I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say. I don't know.
Of course. So obviously you were your offstage male swing for the arts. What was it like when you got or what was the process for getting asked to take over from George for that last part of the show? Because obviously that sort of came out of nowhere from an audience perspective anyway. It just went from George playing Buck to, okay, Charlie's on now for the next week or so.
Yeah, so basically it was on the cards from the beginning. So when George came back, I said like earlier, there was like a couple of days in the first week where I covered for George just because he was finishing off a play that was quite far away from where the rehearsal venue was. So a lot of the time there was a couple of days where if they had to do something specific that what like Buck was in, like a read through, or maybe they were looking at initial blocking of a scene, I just stood in until his play finished. And when he came back, he basically told me that it was already decided, and he was going getting married and going on his honeymoon. But there was never any confirmation about if I was taking over or not. And I did probably I wound everyone up because I just really wanted to know, like, because I had family that obviously wanted to see the show and they wanted to see me as Buck. And because of being an offstage swing, I never knew when I was going to be going on, and I didn't have any set dates. So for like my family, it was always really tricky trying to like plan them coming over because they have to buy flights and hotels and all of this sort of stuff on the whim that I might not be on. So I kind of pushed quite a lot for it, probably wind everyone up doing that. But yeah, I find out about a month. I found out like 3 or 4 weeks before it was going to happen, because that's when we got Michael Cortez in.
Yeah, because I remember when when the announcement of Michael joining the cast happened, and I think a lot of us were like, "Oh, okay, there's another person joining. It's the last couple of weeks of the run. What is going on?" Because I think it just been teased or announced that George was going to be leaving at I think the end of June. So I think everyone originally went, "Oh, maybe Michael is going to take over as Buck for those last couple of weeks." And then when it was revealed you were, we were like, "Oh, okay."
Well, that was it. I think the thing that the production team were probably thinking about was, do we get someone in specifically to just learn the part of Buck and then replace George, and then Charlie will stay in male swing, or do we get someone to replace Charlie as male swing and then Charlie will take over Buck? I don't know how all the conversations and whatnot happened and what the best choice was. But I think, yeah, they sort of got him in a couple of weeks before it was going to happen. And we basically would, anytime anybody went down, we would have a discussion and sort of be like, if it was a specific track that he was maybe going to do quite regularly or he felt prepared to do, I'd be like, right, if you're happy, you do it and I'll take the show off. And that way we sort of got him in the swing of it. And Michael's back this time as offstage male swing. And he's got a cover. He does a couple of covers as well. One cover as well. But yeah, and Michael was great because Michael came in and he just had to learn the whole show in like a week. But yeah, he's spectacular.
Of course. And obviously, offstage swing for the arts run. How many tracks did you have as a swing at the arts? Because I saw you as Hamer, Bud and Archie, Sheriff, and I can't remember the other one I saw you on as.
I essentially did. I think the only part in the whole show that I didn't cover was the preacher. I would, because essentially we didn't have, like, if it had come to the point where I would have had to go on for the preacher, we would have been sunk. So the only part in the show that I didn't cover was the preacher. And the only male track that I didn't go on for was Henry, which was Alex's part. And the reason being that when we started having sicknesses going around quite early on in the cast, so our resident director then sort of became an onstage swing as well. They adjusted his contract so that if we really needed him, so if there was no way that I could swing all the tracks, he would take it. Because if there was actually one show where he split tracked Bud and Archie and Hamer, which I'd done a couple of weeks ago because I was covering Buck. So the only part that I never went on for was Henry, and that was because we had decided between us that if it came to it, he would go on for Henry and I would do the deputy. It's not Ferguson. There's another deputy that Alex plays. I can't remember. Deputy Johnson. And I would do the Deputy Johnson aspect of it. But it never came to that. There was only one point where Alex had injured his leg. And what we did instead was we came up with a storyline that I was another Barrow brother. And I rocked up in God's Arms and gave Henry money and got him to leave the stage, essentially, so that I could then do the dance. And that was the only time that we got close to me doing it. And it was just because, I don't know why, that just seemed to be the easiest thing. And they just sort of asked me, they were like, are you happy to do it that way? And I was like, yeah, great. And then I got asked if I wanted a bow, and I said no. And then loads of people kicked off on Twitter, and I was like, no, I chose not to bow. Because there's not enough room on the stage for everyone to buy anyway. It was always so tight. And I was like, I'm not going on when I've already been on.
The call for Bonnie and Clyde at the Arts was like, especially if you're towards the front, like everyone on the front, it's like, don't lean too far forward, for God's sake.
It's so tight. So I was like, no thanks, I'm not going to buy. And also I got to go home every time. Once Buck died, I got to leave because I wasn't needed anymore. So I used to always just be like, no, I'll do my little dance and then I'll see you in the pub. That was kind of it. But yeah, so we came up with this whole storyline because we wanted it to make sense. So we had a moment where I came on, I think I said hello to Pippa as the mum. I even had a moment with Blanche briefly. I was like, oh, hello. Like I was like an in-law. And then I had a moment with Henry where I gave him money that he then gave to the preacher and all this. No audience member noticed, but it was just something that we had a bit of fun coming up with on the day.
Of course. So what was your favourite swing track for the Arts?
Oh, Bud Archie.
Bud and Archie is funny as hell. Right, for those who didn't get to see Bud and Archie, there's one scene in particular, and we call it the signature scene. I have never laughed so hard in my life with that scene. I've seen yourself as Bud and Archie, and I've also seen Barney. It's hard to say if you can watch that scene with a straight face, you're not. It's hilarious.
I used to have, when I covered Ross's track, because Ross has to stand at the back like this and face the audience with his hands up as the scene happens, and he has no lines. He's just there to be terrified and to react. And I used to hate doing that because I used to just find it so funny. And like, if I was there, Barney just knows how to make me laugh, and it just used to drive me nuts because I had nowhere to hide. I would be facing the audience, so I couldn't laugh. And I'm kind of terrified that now that we have a bigger stage and I'm on stage ensemble, that I'm going to be in that scene and I'm not going to be allowed to laugh. Because yeah, it's just so funny. It's a great book because Act 2 is so much heavier than Act 1. It's a really good scene to sort of lighten the load, especially before you move into that sort of final act of like, somebody's going to die, somebody's going to die, somebody's going to die mode.
Yeah, there's moments I think it's in that scene where I think Clyde has a very funny line, which I think some people found funny and some people went over their heads. It's the bit I think he mentioned somewhere along the line of, "Are you telling me we're robbing a bank that has no money?"
Tell me I'm robbing the bank.
That one just made me
Yeah.
laugh all the time because it's like, wait, this is a bank with no money.
Yeah. And also it's got the best response of complaint forms are over there. Which is just
Yeah, yeah.
fabulous.
Yeah,
Another one of my favorite bits. Like just yeah.
especially with the arts, I will find the name somewhere. But who was playing the preacher? I can't remember.
Akko Mitchell.
Yeah, whenever Akko used to say it, it was funny as hell because he'd just say it so slightly and it'd be like, "Complaint forms over there."
Yeah, he's so dry, and he just like doesn't even try. He's just like if you're gonna shoot me, you're gonna shoot me. And Akko, oh man, yeah, he's not back this year. I'll miss him. He's a very funny man. But yeah, this is it. I mean, I'm really excited this year to have the new faces in because it's gonna mix it up, and it's gonna keep us on our toes, and it's gonna be really fun to see what they bring to it. But the Bonnie and Clyde company is just such a like little family. I'm really excited to see how the new folk fit in, how everyone sort of changes and readapts. It's gonna be really fun.
Yeah, of course, and obviously, you're a male on stage swing this time. I do believe the track is called John. I do believe.
Yeah, I've got John slash prisoner is I believe. But yeah, no, John is he's a guy in the cafe that Bonnie works, and in the prisoners, I think gonna be doing essentially I think that sort of like swapping of the lead pipe sequence. So it'll be nice, and then of course doing like God's Arms and Made in America and a couple of other bits and bobs. But yeah, but it's a great little track because I'll be able to, if I need to swing, I'll be able to easily add other parts into my track without it
Of
being
course,
too.
and obviously, one of the things with the Garrick run, looking at the cast list for it this year, it seems like there's more swings this time around, if I'm correct.
Yes, we have an on-stage female swing and an off-stage female swing. I believe, actually, I'm actually not certain. Actually, they might be both on stage. They might be both on stage. I'm not sure. I'm not sure because whenever we're having our proper meet and greet on Monday. But when we had our brief meet and greet, when we had our ensemble rehearsal, I only got to meet there's three new women in the show playing one's playing the Emma/Stella track, and then I think it's on stage there's an on stage female swing who's playing Eleanor, and then I think there's an off stage female swing, but I actually can't remember whose tracks is whose because I've only met them really briefly. But there has been some additions to ensemble stuff that is really, really good. I can't say anything. But
Of course. So obviously, with the arts, you covered Buck, Clyde, and Ted.
yeah.
Out of all your cover like principal cover tracks, what was your favorite song from each one of those covers?
A favorite song. I think my favorite was always Raise Little Hell Reprise. I think I mean it was always the scariest one because I had to know in the final bit when they have the 3-part harmony, I had to know each one. And it's really hard when you know all 3 harmonies to make sure that you hit the right one when you can only hit one of them. But yeah, I think that one. I don't know, it's really hard to be like, oh, this number is Clyde, because the thing about it is when I did like the Clyde cover run, I hadn't had a lot of rehearsal, and it was at that point it was still very much like a bit nervy. Whereas with the Buck track, I got very comfortable. But I really enjoyed doing with Buck. I enjoyed doing the fun little bit. Why don't they hand over that bit? With Clyde, I always actually loved You Can Do Better Than Him. Was one of my favorite bits. And with Ted, I really enjoyed You. I think You Can Do Better Than Him is just a really pretty song. It's quite fun. And you feel quite cool when you do it as Clyde and you get to sit behind the prison bars. It's really, and you're just like, yeah, here we go. I'm just gonna sit here as suavely as possible and sing this song about I am the best. Like, it's so egocentric, but it's a great moment. It's so much fun.
I think what I loved also with like the arts run is the projections that were used during the show. Some of those projections were some of the best I'd seen. You know, I love the transition going into the Raise a Little Hell scene where you got the judge speaking over as a voiceover, and like the imagery of like, so when Bucky's released, he turns into like a bird sort of thing. I loved that imagery, and I loved Cocky Pride's like shadow looks when he comes on.
But this is a really interesting one. So we did that as a day. There was a couple of us, not everyone did them. A couple of us got asked down to do them. So the mug shots we all did as a video originally. So we all walked on.
Are those mug shots for picture show by any chance?
Yeah. So the mug shots for picture show, and then they did them close up and far away. So the ones far away are what they used for Clyde and Buck, which is the Jordan and George one. But yeah, it was really funny because we actually did them as videos. Like I remember like doing they were quite animated, and then they changed to just being the pictures. But like the bit where they're in the house and there's all the shadows moving in the background, that's me. I think it's me, Barney, Alex, and George, and Jordan actually. So like it's technically Buck and Clyde are hunting themselves, but it was us, and we were told like, you're all going to move from this side to this side, you're all going to move from this side to this side. There was even one, and this is the one I was the most gutted about. I recorded the sheriff being shot, where I had my hat on my head and I had like popped my head back so that my hat would fly off in the air and then like slow motion fall. And then we did one in like full, like we did so many different ideas that didn't make the cut because they were so, Nick wanted them to be on like just perfect and they had to be just right, and they were going to be used in like so many more numbers, and they ended up being cut down so that when they were used they were like, they stood out. Because there was so many of them that just didn't make the cut because it was like they didn't want to over rely on them either. They wanted it when they were used, they were iconic.
I loved like the projections. Some of them were really like clever as well. Like the one during Raise a Little Hell reprise of like Bonnie on the back wall. I just love how some of them projections, and obviously with the Garrick, there's room, I would presume, to bring them back, and also bigger space to hopefully put some more in.
Don't know, no idea.
You got no idea because you haven't got into the theatre yet, I do believe.
I have no clue, man. I just go in and they tell me. I only know what I do on like the next day. I'm like, right, cool. Yeah, it is really funny. And the other one I remember that was a good laugh is when we had to record the screams when you're killing Ed Crowder. And the one of the reasons I'm really gutted I never got a Clyde run is because I wasn't on that night. So when me and Barney recorded our screams, I just blew my voice out. Like I went absolutely mental. Because I was like, well, I don't have to do a show tonight.
I do love that moment where Clyde starts hitting Ed Crowder and the blood just goes up the wall. I remember when that scene was happening, I could sort of see what was about to happen. And I was like, okay, I'm not expecting a lot here. I'm expecting maybe some red lights to come in, something like that. No, blood going up the wall. I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's vicious. So really, yeah, it's really straight. It's a brutal moment. It's one of the darkest moments in the show. I mean, in real life, Clyde cut his own toe off to get away from Ed Crowder. So
I think what makes that scene even funnier or darker as well is at the Arts, if you're sat in the first couple of rows and you're in the eye line of Jordan's what we call death stare when Clyde finally snaps.
Oh, it's
higher experience, especially if Jordan is staring at you when it's before the guard comes back in. And Jordan sort of just looks outward slightly, and you just see pure evil in his eyes.
Yeah,
I can only imagine what yours would be like, though. Like,
no, man.
You would start getting out probably.
Jordan's is like, yeah. I mean, it's it's just what's really fun about doing it in the show is that it's the music just follows you. The band are just following you, so you can really just take your time. Because it's the same I love with Jordan's. Yeah, it's that moment where he just sits and he always just has this little look out to the audience, and it's really haunting. And it's the same. There's a moment Barney does when he crawls towards the bars, and it's on the broken. When Barney sings the word broken, and he like it's not even sung. It's just this like guttural sound that comes out of him, and it's
Yeah, when I had Barney, when he gets to that line, Jordan normally does it like broken by the devil. With Barney, it's like broke. It's like he goes for it. And
It's
I'm
like,
just I'm like, this guy's terrifying me.
yeah, and then I think that's it. It's like you can't it's like comparing apples and oranges. Do you know what I mean? Like they each everyone or anyone when they bring themselves these parts, there's something, and there's something really special about every single one of them. And I used to watch. Like I mean I've seen the show. Actually, I was gonna say I've seen the show more than any of the fans, and I actually don't know if that's true. I think the fans might be. But like, I've watched the show so many times, and I've seen all of these little twinkly moments, and I've watched it from different angles, and been on stage with them. And like, I think it's one of the really special things is that everyone when they play one of these parts, they each bring something really fresh to it, and it's really exciting. There's things about Jordan's calm. He has this really calm demeanor and this smile and this just like you don't know what's going on behind his eyes, and it's terrifying. And Barney brings this more, I said earlier, like caged animal, this guttural scream that comes out of him, and it's really exciting. I think as an actor to work opposite. I mean, not just with Clyde, but with any of the parts. Everyone's just so strong. Oh man, I'm getting excited for next week.
Yeah, definitely. Like when Barney goes to do like the hitting Ed Crowder with the pipe, some of the screams that come out of Barney's mouth during that, I genuinely wonder whether he's actually going insane or whether he's just going full out.
Nah, he was just stood beside me. We had a thing here, and we went down a phone. It wasn't a phone; it was like a proper microphone. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. But I'm excited. I remember as well. We me, Jordan, and Barney all did the projection that Clyde does in the prison cell, and we all did that together in the room with each other, and it was just
I think I've seen a picture of this. Is it on like a green screen? And there's like there's like a little window sort of thing.
Yeah, so it was like
it's the first behind the scenes thing I ever saw, and I was like, and it was before the show opened, and I'm looking at it like, what the fuck is this got to do with anything?
So it was like because Jordan went first, and Jordan, did his, and it was great. And then me and Barney went next, and I just remember because we all just sort of watched each other and had a laugh because obviously the scene is so dark, but you just have to try and find a bit of humor in it. But me and Barney had this tendency that when we did it, because the thing that we were leaning on, the cage, was on wheels. So when you threw yourself into it, it might move, which obviously ruined the projection. So when I was doing it, Barney had to lie in front of me and use.
Oh yeah, I've seen this picture. Yeah, Barney sort of laid sort of like that on the floor.
He laid with his feet on it. And the thing is, I was doing it, and it took us, me and Barney specifically, took us so many takes because anytime I looked down, I could just see Barney like this closing his eyes because he kept laughing. Like, and it was so hard. It was like, and Nick Winston came in and he was just like, I knew it would take you two this long, like, because we just couldn't get it together. But yeah, it's great. I'm really excited to see what I'm really excited to see what Jordan and Frankie and George and Cleve bring to the parts now they've had a bit of a break from it to now come back to it and revisit it. And I'm also really excited to see the new people and the covers and the swings that are all going to come in and whatever. It's going to be really exciting. I think it's really exciting for the fans as well.
Yeah, I think the thing I'm excited with is obviously because Jordan did his concert in between the shows, Bonnie and Clyde closing, and then, Raise a Little Hell made its way into that. From watching Jordan do Raise a Little Hell in his solo concert, it sort of put in my mind, I think he's going to be even more insane this time around. Because, like first time round, this is the first time we get to see a UK version of Clyde. And just watching Jordan do it in the concert was like, holy shit.
But it's also that thing of like, you know, when you do something like that and you get really caught up in it and there's a lot going on and even for us, you know, and for Jordan and stuff, it's like you're originating this part, this sort of cult role. And now Jordan's had this break and Frankie and everyone have had this break. They get to come back at it and they've had like 6 months to sort of look back at what they've done and think, because you always think what you could have done differently or what you wish you'd tried. So I'm really excited to see what they bring to it, because the guys that are coming back from the original production, it's going to elevate in ways because they're going to have things that they're going to try. They're going to bring new things to the table. And every time one person brings something new to the table, that's going to affect what everyone else brings. So it's going to be a really exciting time.
Of course, I'm going to hand over to Christine, see if she's got any more questions for you.
Questions. There's always questions. What is you've pulled pranks in the theater, right? Just amongst each other.
Yes.
What was your best prank that you pulled?
My favorite one, that was my idea too, because this is the thing, is I could easily list someone else's idea off as my own, but I won't. My favorite was I got Barney's phone and I sellotaped it into the laundry basket and I flipped it.
I heard about this.
And
I heard about this.
And I just kept texting it when Barney was in the room. And it got to the point where like I was dying, and it went on for like the full show. and then after that show, the next show we put it in a different place and we did it all again. And it was vicious and it was so cruel. But it was a day where everyone in the room was in on it and everybody kept texting him and calling him just enough to make him think he knew where it was. And it went on for the whole day. And we never did it again. And I think that's why it's so special that we never did it a second time.
Yeah, I do remember. I think I either saw about this on Instagram somewhere or I heard about it. And to be fair, that's probably something I would probably try and do. Like, just sellotape the phone. I mean,
the other one that was very popular was people used to, I don't know who, I do know who, it was Ross Dawes initiated it, but this idea of putting sellotape over doors or like around the dressing room so you couldn't see, you'd never notice it, and you'd be coming back in, maybe you're going to do a quick change and you would just run into sellotape and it would be all over you and you had to then pull it all off. There was so many, like the pranks in the show were ridiculous, especially the boys' room. Like the girls used to be down the corridor and they would be like, we can hit what is going on because we can just hear these fits of laughter.
Of course, I think there was another one where I can't remember. I think it was on an Instagram feed where I think it was nearly everyone in the men's room were all cramped into like a shower sort of thing.
Yeah, that was actually when I think we first got the theater, and I can't remember whose idea it was. It was just like, how many people can fit in the shower? And it didn't even, there was no like question of, should we do this? Will we do this? It was just, all right, I'm in. And every boy just climbed into the shower. And I think that was...
I think I remember seeing the ones I could point out. I think Cleve was in there. I think Ross was in there. I think Barney was trying to get out.
Barney. Yeah, I think almost everyone was in. We tried to squeeze everyone in, and it was teeny. It was, we had the banter that happened in that used to happen all the time.
I can only imagine like the level of like pranks are going to go higher with the Garrick, because obviously, maybe bigger space, like dressing room wise.
I don't know, because it depends. Like, I think the thing that made that room so chaotic was because like there was almost every male member of cast in there. The only men that weren't in that room was Jordan, George, and Akko. The rest of us were all in that room, so there was a lot of us, and it just the way that Bonnie and Clyde as a show works, it's very principle heavy. So the ensemble have these breaks, and we just pass the time by being hellish to each other, or saying fish. Like there was always just something to pass the time.
Obviously, we spoke about the fish. We spoke about the fish ritual. Is there any other like pre-show rituals or any backstage rituals that that you can remember from the arts?
Yes, so there was the fish. The fish was the main one, and that was at the 5. So basically, that was like 10 minutes before the show went up every night. We put Ain't No Fish on. And the kids used to come down even and sing it. I wrote all the lyrics out and we put it on the door. Just to say, like, this started because it's a song that Barney listens to when he doesn't get a job, because it's this idea that there's always another fish, like it's okay. And he told us his story and played it, and he loved this, and we all hated it. And then,
I want to find this song now. I want to find this song.
It's such a good tune. And we all got the lyrics wrong at the beginning because we thought it was holy macaroni at the beginning, but it's holy mackerel. And then we renamed our dressing room the Holy Mackerel Room. And I think we have said that in the Garrick we won't do that, because the Holy Mackerel Room will only ever be those boys by that group. We'll have something new for the Garrick group. But yeah, so it started like that, and then it became this thing, and it just really caught on, and also it peeved some people off. So we started doing it almost for as like a bit of a joke to wind people up. But then everyone just got in on it, and then the next thing, it became this thing, and people would like text us being like, let's see the Holy Mackerel Room, let's see you all singing, and then that would be it. But the other one we had, which was actually the kids, I think it was the kids, it was only certain people. It was the kids, Gracie, the chaperone, Buck, and Preacher. And it used to be during the bullets at the start of the show, there's one like stray bullet. It's like, and it comes past, but it comes specifically from the speaker where this group of people were always waiting to go on. And we would all sit like this. And the idea was that you had to fire the shot as it played on the speaker. And if you got it, then you got a point. And they kept a tally chart over the course of the run to see who could do it with the most accuracy. That was another game. I'm trying to think if we had lots of little silly things. I can't remember what they all are now.
Yeah, no. So obviously, also, you know, as everyone knows with live theatre, things do go wrong occasionally. Obviously, one of the most infamous things with the art was Jordan having to play dead and shut the car door on opening preview.
Yeah, that was a funny one, wasn't it?
Yeah. Were there any other things? Were there any other things, like major things that happened?
Major things that happened. So one of the things that it didn't happen, but it certainly, well, not that it didn't happen, but it was a thing that was changed. So the car is really small, because obviously people were much smaller back then. So Jordan, I mean, I struggled. Jordan especially struggled, but getting into that car was a nightmare.
Yeah, that car. Whenever I looked at it, I'm looking at it going, how the hell is Jordan fitting in that?
Yeah, it was an absolute nightmare. So that used to be one of the things that was really funny, is if Clyde mistimed the sort of bridge after This World Will Remember Me, the little sort of moment he does as the sliders come down, it was really awkward because Clyde would just never get in the car because he always had to get back out. So that if he like timed it wrong, he'd be like, you as well remember me. Like, you had to time it just right.
There were a couple of times where I think the sliders were taking a bit longer to come down. And there were times where I think Jordan actually fully got in the car and was sat there by the time the slider had actually got like halfway down the car.
I'm trying to think of, there was one mishap I had that was, it didn't actually, I got away with it. But there was a time when I was doing the Hamer track, and Hamer has to quick change into the guard at the end of God's Arms Are Always Open. And as I was so basically then you have to be on stage ready for when Bonnie starts coming across the stage. As I was going to get into position, I'd finished the quick change. The assistant stage manager's hair got caught in my button, and I couldn't move, and we were stuck, and we were trying to untangle this situation so that I could get on stage. And Frankie was already halfway walking across the stage, and there was no guard there to be sleazy and stop her. But by the time I made it just in time. She was right about to get off stage, and I popped out like, and just pushed her all the way back with my baton. This like little, like, don't know. I just like popped out literally like because there was no room and I had to get my baton out. So I just like jumped out and was like, nope, back you go. Because I just had to get her into the light and it was so naff. But I think the main one that always went wrong was the tile. Buck's tile was a nightmare. That was always so hard because you were under pressure to get this bloody thing and the amount of times it used to fall down in the middle of the scene.
Yeah, I do believe. I think Lauren said there was a competition. I think between her and George or whoever was playing Buck was how hard they can throw the towel during the going back to jail scene.
I used to purposely aim for her face. That was mainly all. Like, I would purposely so that when she spoke, I would try and get her right in the face. But I can't actually think of like mishap. There was one time I remember actually during the entrance, where Barney, like me and Nat were getting ready to go on. It's during the bit when he's in the bathtub and Barney just like skipped a bunch, like didn't say the cue or something, and we were like sat there like, are we going? Do we not go? Like I can't even remember what it was, but it was just a moment of like us looking at each other, and then Barney caught himself and fixed it. But like there's just so many little things, but I can't remember any massive mishaps. There was one moment I remember as the sheriff where I absolutely just started improvising lines because I got so lost in a scene, and Per Cleve just looked at me like, what are you doing? I just had a moment where I blanked, but I can't think of anything particularly funny besides what I've already said.
Yeah, I do like the bathtub scene because I just love how it goes from the song Bonnie, which is a lovely song. I think it's an underrated song personally in the show. I think it's just so underrated, and I love how it goes from that to the lights go out and then the lights come back on, and whoever's playing Clyde is in a very fashionable pink robe.
Yeah. Do you know what? There was a moment as well actually during Ray's Little Hell Reprise, and I can't remember who was playing Clyde, but I was playing Buck, and I gave them my hat to put in my head, and they just completely did it wrong, and it just sat really weirdly and then fell off my head, and it was just this really weird moment where they're like, and it just fell, and I was like, I just had to pick it up and be like, okay, and walk over to the side. But
it is one of them. Like that's whole bathtub scene. I just start bursting into laughter when Clyde points the gun at Blanche. That is like, just. I love how it just goes from looking that way to straight over there.
Yeah, there was a spectacular moment in the rehearsals with the machine guns where they were doing Ray's Little Hell Reprise, and Jordan lifted this machine gun over his head for his like final pose. But he must have, because those guns, like you can do quite a lot with them. Like you can reload them and stuff. There was lots of fun things that we could do. But Jordan must have accidentally hit this button to loosen the magazine. And when he lifted it over his head in this like big dramatic pose, the clip fell out. And it was hilarious. But it was in the rehearsal room. But after that, they end up screwing these things in so it couldn't happen because he was like, little hell, and this thing just fell out, and it was just like everyone just was like looked at it and was like, whoops.
I think that's something I would probably, like Christine knows me quite well. Like I've done some stupid shit in like rehearsals for shows, but that is probably something I would end up doing of basically like putting the gun up and just seeing it drop down, and I'd go,
I
think I'll say this. I don't know, Charlie, if you've ever worked in a show. Have you ever had to work with a revolve?
No. Oh yes, but a manual revolve.
I worked with a manual revolve. So I did a show where basically I told this story to Christine and she finds it hilarious. But basically, the revolve in the middle of the stage was basically there was a scene where I had to run from the front of stage onto the actual revolve. Now this was a free performance weekend, so show 1 and 2 running onto the revolve, nothing went wrong.
Yeah.
Third day, no joke, final show, I run onto the revolve and the revolve starts moving.
Oh no.
And no joke, no one could stop the bloody thing, so it's just revolving around like that. And I'm just there, like, slowly getting ill. I'm like, and I'm looking off just stage left to the director, and I'm sort of looking at him saying the lines and sort of saying, "Get your fucking ass over here."
No thanks, not for me, mate. No.
Nah, I mean, and that ironically, that's the last time I work with a Revolve.
Yeah, no, I've never had one. I did a show with a manual revolve, but like I just remember having to physically push it round as part of the aesthetic.
Yeah, that's what ours was. But what it was I think the actual stage hands, they put the brake on, but I think it weren't fully in. It was like a 2-click thing. So like it went through 1 click, but the second one either it did and it just didn't stick, or someone wanted to fuck around. Yeah. Christine, any other wonderful questions?
Yeah, sure, why not? All right, if you were dropped out of the sky, where would you like to land?
Somewhere soft.
There we go. That's an honest answer right there.
Perfectly. Somewhere soft, in like near Hawaii would be nice. I
Ooh,
suppose.
nice.
Why not?
Yes. Yeah.
Obviously, like I say, as we're saying to our listeners, Bonnie and Clyde opens for previews on March 4th. Charlie, what can audiences expect come to this show if they didn't get to catch it at the Arts?
Yeah, if you didn't catch it, it's an amazingly great fun night out that's based on a true story. But on top of that, it's got an amazing sort of country rock score. And it tells the story of love, and it's got lots of murder and twists and turns and cops and robbers. And it's a very thrilling night out with great music, great vocals, great acting. You're gonna have a great time. And the music is Frank Wildhorn also wrote this. I don't want to say this because I get it wrong. Is it Where the Broken Hearts Go? He wrote a really it's a really famous song he also wrote on top of his numerous musical hits. But yes, it's a great musical with lots of love, passion, great acting, great vocals, and you're gonna have a good time, and you will not get those songs out of your head.
Of course. And a question: have you ever heard the demos for Bonnie and Clyde?
No, I haven't. No.
No, because we managed to, I can send you the link after the show, but there's basically a playlist on YouTube where you can actually hear the original 2007, 2008 demos of Bonnie and Clyde. Absolutely brilliant. The demo version of That's What You Call a Dream, That's What You Call a Dream is already a brilliant, nice slow song as it is. But the demo version, it's really good. Basically, the tempo is a bit faster, and it's like, wow.
Can't wait. I'll check it out.
And also, Dying Ain't So Bad also was different as well. Can't remember what it was, Christine. What was the Dying Ain't So Bad demo?
Oh my gosh, I'm thinking. While I'm thinking though, it's like What You Call a Dream. Like there's the two middle parts of that song are different than what they are in the show. And that song was brilliant. But the one for Dying Ain't So Bad is called I Don't Know the Way. And it is so beautiful. I'm like, why didn't they keep that one? Like the endings are similar, but it's like the whole thing. I'm like, wow.
I'll have to check it out then. That sounds great.
Of course. So, Charlie, for those who want to follow you on social media, where can people find you?
Oh man, I never remember my social media off the top of my head. It's like I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, just Instagram and Twitter pretty much. And I believe it's like C_McCullagh 025, something along those lines. I hope I'm correct. But yeah. And I think I'm the same on Twitter, C_McCullagh 025.
Of course. And once again, you can find Charlie as an onstage swing at Bonnie and Clyde from March 4th until May, I keep forgetting, May 20 something, I think.
20th.
Of course. I will briefly mention this at the end. I wanted to get your reaction to it. So I presume you're aware on how this run of Bonnie and Clyde, it's been subject to leaks, if you know what I mean. So the posters, yeah.
The what?
So, well, so
Oh, the
basically,
posters.
yeah,
Yes,
you know,
the
like the
posters.
posters at can't remember what tube stations it was. That was the least. That was the one where we're like, okay, yeah, that one was going to happen at some point. I
Yeah.
feel like, but obviously, the announcement of it coming back to the Garrick, that was one that got leaked by, you know, journalists. What's your sort of reaction to that? Like, you know, a show getting leaked before it's officially announced.
I mean, it's just sad, and it's kind of like I feel like there's a lot of marketing, and there's people that I know, especially on Bonnie and Clyde, that put a lot of time and effort into knowing how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and making sure it happens so that it gets the most buzz and that they can obviously publicize the show the best. And I think that we should. It's just having a bit of respect, I suppose, to the show and to the people that work on it to make sure that it gets announced in the way that they want it to get announced, because the amount of people that put all the work into this. For me personally, I try to avoid leaks as much as possible just for that. I want to be able to find out about something or enjoy something the way that the creators wanted me to.
Yeah, because it was a weird leak that happened, because it was when it was announced. It got announced, I think, 12 hours before that it was going to be coming back, but going to the Garrick. And when it came out, everyone was like, you know, everyone's so excited because this is something, you know, that we've been waiting for months and months. And then for it to, you know, unofficially get announced, you know, it's one of them things. But obviously the posters, you know, the posters at the tube stations,
Someone
I
did
found
say
that more funny. I found that funny more than annoying, because it was going to happen at some point.
Yeah, I just rolled my eyes. Somebody, I think, my friend Rosie, who's just did pretty much every stage management role eventually in Bonnie and Clyde in the last run. She's currently working on My Son's a Queer, but she messaged me a photo of it. She was getting off the tube and she'd seen a picture of it, and she messaged it to me. Because by that point, obviously, all the cast were signed on and we all knew what we were doing, but we were just waiting for the announcement. So yeah, I just kind of rolled my eyes and was like, oh well, these things happen. But also I somehow, this is just me being bad with news, I didn't even know when we were getting announced. So the day that I was going to rehearsals and I got off the tube and the cast announcement had come out, completely blew my mind. I was just like, oh, okay. Like, but that's how aware of those situations I am.
Of course. And obviously cast recording as well. Just to finish up on, how is cast recording going?
Well, it's been great for me. I've not been there. No, I've not been there yet. I'm going in tomorrow. But I know all of the tracks that are going on the cast recording. And I've obviously heard everyone singing them before because we did a sort of cast sing through. And I think that fans of the show are going to be really happy because it's great, and it's gonna, not only are you going to get these new takes in the characters, but there's a couple of little there's a couple of numbers that are sort of given a wee bit more than they were given in the arts and given in the Broadway that have got a bit more meat to them now. That I think you know, fans will enjoy. I'm trying to be like, don't say anything I shouldn't. But yeah.
Obviously, we do know at the arts, there was, I think, a new song added, which was, I think, if I remember correctly, between Ted and Bonnie in Act 1. That was, I think, that was a brand new song, I do believe. No, I think it sounded similar to a song from the Broadway album, but it got repurposed.
It was a repurposed, rewritten song. Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of new things, and the script has been reworked in several ways. So there's I think if you've seen the arts production and you're debating coming to see the Garrick production, there will be enough new stuff that you will be able to that you'll be able to appreciate and have opinions on, I suppose, to see if you prefer the changes or you don't.
Of course. Obviously, thank you everyone for listening to this episode. Once again, thanks Charlie for coming on. It genuinely, when I got the email through, I was like, oh wow.
Thanks for having me.
Honestly, it was. It's obviously, you know, you're the second, third, technically, cast member to come on from the show. Obviously, we've had yourself, we've had Lauren, and we also had Jodie Steele a year and a half before she was even part of the show. So, yeah, of course, obviously make sure everyone goes follow Charlie on socials. Obviously go follow Bonnie and Clyde. If you're watching the video version, you'll see me and Charlie have both got the same hoodie on right now.
Rep.
That was I genuinely was not expecting that. I'm like,
I mean, be fair, I was like, what will I wear? And I only had a t-shirt on, and it was getting a bit chilly, and I was like, I'll put a hoodie on, and I saw my Bonnie and Clyde jumper, and I was like, there we go, that'll do.
Here we go. Obviously, anyone who wants to follow me on social media, you can find me on Instagram at knashstandup01. And Christine, where can people find you?
They can just go to my Linktree. It's Linktree/Christine Knowlton. Yep. You'll find all my information.
And of course, if you are in the UK, I highly recommend you buy a ticket for Bonnie and Clyde. The arts run was absolutely brilliant. And from what I've heard, it's going to be a very exciting run at the Garrick. And of course, cast recording is on its way at some point. Hopefully, not too far away. Hopefully, not too far away.
I know nothing.
Nothing.
I know nothing. I'm that guy from Hot Fuzz. Nobody tells me nothing.
I think just to sign off with, Charlie, could you let's sign off with a buck line.
A buck line. I have everything I want too, baby. But there's still things I want.
Boom. That. Keep an eye out for Charlie's buck dates. Hopefully it won't be too long until we get to see a buck from Charlie. But yes, this has been the Reckless Comedy Podcast. We'll be back eventually, somewhere. We're slowly coming back, but who knows who our next guest will be? Will we have another Bonnie and Clyde one? There's discussions going on. There are some discussions going on, but who knows? Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Cool. Christine, you can stop recording now.